High above the world floated a mysterious island, one that had earned a fearsome nickname among the people below. It was known as the bringer of fortune and woe, a place spoken of in legend rather than in fact. The legend explained why. When the island glowed blue, blessings rained down upon the land. When it turned black, disaster followed instead. No one could predict which color would come next. And that uncertainty had shaped the world's stories for generations. Far from that legend, in an ordinary clinic, Dr. Takuma Uzuki carried on his quiet work. At 27, he had built a reputation as a skilled physician, finishing up a routine appointment with practiced calm. He removed stitches from a patient's leg with steady precision, his movements careful despite using only one working hand. The procedure went smoothly, and the patient thanked him before leaving. As the day wound down, a young receptionist stopped Takuma before he could retreat to his office. She hesitated, clearly wanting to ask him something personal. Her question came quietly. She wanted to know why Dr. Uzuki always relied on his left hand alone, never his right. Takuma reached toward the bookshelf, deflecting gently. He asked if she knew about the landslide that had struck the nearby mountains a year earlier, adding that she wouldn't since she was still new to the clinic. Behind him, someone murmured the nickname that had followed him ever since. The tragic master doctor. The memory surfaced clearly. A doctor had been at the scene of that landslide, helping pull victims to safety, when the ground gave way again without warning. In that instant, Takuma had thrown himself over an injured stranger to shield them from falling debris. The impact tore through his shoulder, severing function in his brachial plexus. From that day forward, his right arm had never moved again, no matter how much time passed, alone with his thoughts. Takuma flexed his working hand and admitted how limited his work had become. He wondered privately if it might finally be time to quit medicine altogether. Frustration built beneath his composed exterior. He had worked so hard to become a doctor, only for his own body to betray that purpose. Forcing a tired laugh, he brushed it off as usual, telling himself there was simply no feeling left in that arm anymore. Later, inside the storage room, a pure white cat appeared out of nowhere. Its stillness struck him as almost otherworldly. Before he could question it further, space itself began to warp violently around the cat, jagged distortions tearing through the room. The fractures spread rapidly, and Takuma felt his entire surroundings collapsing as the world split apart beneath him. He came to on unfamiliar ground, surrounded by strange metallic structures, disoriented and unsure how he had gotten there. Something massive loomed nearby, an enormous mechanical sphere, unlike anything he recognized. Confused and searching for answers, Takuma noticed the same white cat sitting calmly beside him, the only familiar thing left in this bewildering new world. Takuma found himself kneeling before a robed figure seated on a throne. A white cat perched calmly at the stranger's side. Long silver hair fell over the figure's face, hiding any clear expression. The figure spoke of a fragment finally arriving to avoid destruction, words that made little sense to Takuma. Nearby, a woman approached hesitantly, asking if this stranger had truly just appeared out of nowhere. Takuma stood frozen, uncertain what any of this meant or where he had ended up. The seated figure offered a quiet farewell, hoping Takuma would enjoy this world before he could respond. The floor beneath him gave way entirely. He plummeted through open air, his body suddenly wrapped in something strange. It felt lighter than it should, and he realized with alarm that he was surrounded by liquid. Suspended inside the strange bubble, Takuma noticed his old injuries, and even his clothes appeared to be mending themselves. Confusion turned to disbelief as he realized the bubble carrying him was steadily falling. Panic set in as the ground rushed closer. He had no way to stop the fall, and the bubble struck down with a violent impact. The crash left him deposited in an untouched forest, sunlight filtering gently through the trees above a quiet stream. Elsewhere in that same forest, urgent voices cried out, someone pleading for a companion named Sfur not to die. A fox-eared girl scrambled over rocky terrain, calling out Sfur's name in desperation, while her companions, a swordsman and a hooded mage, hurried behind her. The group had been searching for a bounty target, hoping to complete quests and build their reputation, only to end up battered from the effort. They marched through the mountains fully geared, warding off bug bites and leeches, foraging what food they could along the way. None of them had truly grasped how brutal real travel would be. Complaints about hunger and distance filled their trek until their leader promised the destination was close. Moments later, a sudden threat crashed through the underbrush. Ver, their beast companion, took the hit meant for the group. The swordsman clenched his jaw, blaming himself for failing to protect the one who was supposed to be protected. Bitterness crept into his voice as he questioned how they could ever call themselves the four holy heroes after such a poor showing. The fox-eared girl noticed something unsettling. a strange squishing sound coming from Sver's wounded body. The mage recognized it with dread, connecting it to the needle that had struck Sver earlier. She suspected it was the sound of rotting flesh. No ordinary monsters should have been lurking in that area, which left them wondering exactly what had attacked them, and whether poison was now spreading through their friend. The swordsman clenched his fists in frustration, wishing desperately that he possessed the miracle of purification to cure Sver before it was too late. Nearby, Isekai'd stared up at the same strange object glowing above the trees, its jagged form catching the light. It bore the name Bringer of Fortune and Woe, and one of his companions wondered aloud if it might finally help them. An old rhyme surfaced in memory, warning that when the star turned black, one should take up a sword and stay awake, but when it shone blue, one should bow down and receive its bounty. Quarrel dismissed it instantly, scolding, "Whoever brought up a bard's poem at a time like this?" Isekai'd noted dryly that as far as he knew, no one had ever actually seen the thing drop anything at all. Something did seem to be falling from it now, catching against the sunlight and hard to make out clearly. The color resolved itself. Blue Quarrel bolted forward at once, ignoring warnings to stay cautious and not be reckless. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Takuma groaned awake, bruised but alive. He realized the strange slime that had wrapped around him during the fall had cushioned the trees enough to save his life. Struggling to process what had happened, he tried freeing himself from the residue clinging to his body, only for a fox-eared girl to burst out of the undergrowth and collide directly into him. The impact sent them both tumbling through the brush amid startled cries before they came to a stop in a tangled heap. Takuma stared at her, baffled by the language she spoke, and by the animal ears sitting atop her head, quickly registering that her outfit and the surrounding scenery belonged to nowhere he recognized. She struggled to speak through the slime coating her mouth, and Takuma slowly began to suspect he had landed somewhere far stranger than expected. Her plea suddenly became clear to him. She was begging for help, insisting that someone named Sver was going to die, and somehow he found he could understand her words. Her companions caught up moments later, relieved to find her safe, one of them noting the sweetness of the slime, still clinging to everything nearby. Takuma stood apart from the group, wondering quietly if he had truly been transported into another world entirely. The girl grabbed his sleeve without hesitation, urging him to come along, leaving him confused about where they were even heading. Exhausted, she led him through the trees until they reached their camp, where a wounded, hulking beastman comrade lay motionless on the ground. One companion wondered aloud whether Takuma was even human, or perhaps some kind of beastman himself. The girl begged him directly, insisting Sver would die unless he helped. Another party member explained bluntly that they had been hired to hunt demons, but were far too inexperienced, and things had spiraled out of control. A hostile swordsman shouted questions Takuma couldn't understand, though he could clearly sense the anger behind them. Still, Takuma reasoned that when someone begged a doctor for help, the world they stood in didn't matter. There was only one thing left to do. Isekai'd lunged forward, demanding the stranger get away from Sver, while Quarrel screamed his name in protest, terrified of what might happen. Isekai'd realized he had only been speaking gibberish, and the fox-eared girl clarified that the man had simply said he would leave things to him. Something about that answer left Isekai'd unsettled. Warily, Isekai'd warned the black-haired stranger not to try anything suspicious, though he found himself puzzled that only this clumsy-speaking newcomer's words made any sense to him at all. The girl explained that Sver had taken hits from a hedgehog's needles while shielding the group. Takuma asked what exactly had happened before kneeling down to examine the affected area, spotting the needles still lodged in place. He asked to borrow a knife so he could shave away the fur and get a proper look at the wound underneath. As he worked, the girl asked if he himself was hurt. Having noticed earlier that he never used his right arm, Takuma pressed on regardless, asking his patient to pull the fur back so he could continue. Examining the puncture wounds closely, he noted there was no major inflammation, and nothing resembling the necrosis typical of a snake bite. The wounds themselves looked clean, which puzzled him further, since he had expected a world like this to carry venomous needles filled with hemotoxins. Then he noticed unusual swelling forming around Sver's neck, and a strange popping sound accompanying it, one that seemed to be spreading further by the moment. Pressing down on the swelling, he saw that the indentations refused to fade. A troubling sign. He asked the group to check Sver's body temperature against what was normal for him. Two of them gave conflicting answers, one insisting it felt colder than usual, the other certain it ran warmer, sparking a small argument between them. Takuma absorbed the information calmly, concluding they believed this presentation to be normal for their friend. Suddenly, a rustling nearby interrupted their discussion. A spiked creature shot out from the grass, and Quarrel shouted a warning, recognizing it instantly as the very thing that had struck Sver with its needles in the first place. The creature surged toward them again, and Takuma stood his ground firmly despite the danger closing in. Impact sent him sprawling as needles struck and claws swiped through the air, leaving the girls watching in horror. The girl cried out for him in alarm as he collapsed, gripping his side and admitting through gritted teeth that it hurt. Isekai'd moved in and struck the creature down with his blade before it could attack again. Magia raised her staff, determined not to let her spell misfire this time, and unleashed a burst of flame toward the creature. The blast connected in a brilliant explosion, and she cried out in triumph, relief spreading across the group's faces. Verse stirred, worried and asking if Takuma was okay, insisting she would treat him immediately. Takuma only repeated quietly that it hurt, staring down at his trembling hand as Ver stared, unsettled by what she had just witnessed. Takuma flexed his right hand in disbelief, realizing it could suddenly feel pain and move, something that made no sense given his old injury. Raising his hand toward the sky, he wondered aloud whether coming to this strange world had somehow restored it. A faint, satisfied smile crossed his face as the others looked on in silence. Ver panicked, reminding him he had been struck by the very same poison needle that hit her, worried he might start rotting away too. The others exchanged confused glances, questioning whether the poison had driven him half mad, since he seemed to be laughing and crying at once. Takuma assured them calmly that there was nothing to worry about. He explained that Sver's symptoms most likely pointed to traumatic subcutaneous emphysema, rather than any poison. The needle had punctured his trachea, letting air leak into the tissue beneath his skin whenever he strained himself, which produced the popping sound they had heard. Confused by the medical explanation, the group asked what that meant for the poison and the supposed rotting flesh. Takuma clarified that it was air, nothing more sinister. He assured them compressing the area with a bandage and letting Sver rest for a few days would allow it to heal naturally, no cause for concern. Pointing at the creature's needles, he stated firmly that they carried no poison at all. Ver admitted, now that it was explained. He no longer felt like he was in agonizing pain, while the others processed the news with quiet relief. Takuma reassured them, noting some symptoms looked alarming even when harmless, so it made sense they'd feared the worst when skin swelled up with unsettling popping sounds. Isekai'd apologized for doubting him earlier, expressing genuine relief that Takuma turned out to be fine, while quietly studying the black-haired stranger with growing curiosity. Takuma had diagnosed the condition easily despite Sver's evident suffering, and in that same moment, memory stirred within Isekai'd. He recalled how, the instant Takuma confirmed, there was no poison. The man had thrown himself forward without hesitation to protect an injured server from the creature's attack. An old rhyme echoed in his mind, one about stars glowing blue and bowing down to receive the harvest. Watching Takuma, Isekai'd found himself wondering whether this stranger might be someone capable of truly helping them, uncertain whether his arrival was a disaster or a blessing in disguise. Takuma Uzuki stands in his white coat with arms crossed, reflecting on how an unexpected accident left his arm paralyzed and stole away his purpose as a doctor. He recalls feeling he no longer belonged at the hospital, even as the demanding world of modern medicine kept struggling under constant staff shortages and impossibly high standards. Before he can dwell further, something suddenly pulls him away, dragging him through a strange tearing sensation, alongside a startled white cat he had been chasing. He opens his eyes to find himself standing before an unfamiliar landscape, realizing with quiet disbelief that he has somehow been transported into another world entirely. Watching a group of armored strangers in the distance, he hears someone dismiss a companion named Sver as a coward, then notices his paralyzed arm has mysteriously healed. Confused, Takuma tries to pinpoint when the change happened, wondering if it traces back to an encounter with a slime or something that occurred even earlier than that. A hazy memory surfaces of someone wishing him well in this new world, prompting Takuma to consider that he owes gratitude to whoever guided him here safely. Nearby, a white-haired man named Sever notices him muttering to himself and calls out, catching Takuma off guard as he stands alone among the tall grass. The group, including a large beastman and a young woman carrying a staff, wonder aloud who this strange newcomer is and whether he was expressing thanks to someone. Takuma quietly worries that these complete strangers might already view him with suspicion, given how sudden and unexplainable his appearance must seem to them. Fearing they might abandon him on this unknown mountain, which would be far worse than simply getting lost, Sever stops the group before they can leave. Sever points out that everyone looks badly beaten up, prompting Takuma to declare that he has to do something to help before the situation worsens further. Takuma offers to examine the rest of the group's injuries, asking only that they guide him toward a place where other people can be found. A cat-eared girl translates his intentions simply, explaining that he wants protection in exchange for offering medical treatment to anyone who needs it. Verse studies Takuma's forced smile with a guarded expression, silently repeating the word protect, as he considers what kind of person this stranger really is. The group questions whether people like him actually live somewhere above the clouds, since he claims to have fallen straight down from the sky itself. Takuma struggles to explain his arrival, suggesting teleportation magic might be responsible, though privately admitting he does not fully understand it himself. The young witch reacts with disbelief, insisting that such fairy tale magic could not possibly be real, no matter how strange his story sounds. Anna, their companion, argues that Takuma does not seem to be lying, then brings up the legendary bringer of fortune and woe as another supposed fairy tale. Deciding suspicion serves no purpose. Now, the group agrees to bring Takuma back and consult someone named Gerald, then finally asks for his name, caught off guard. Takuma blurts out that he is a doctor, and the group repeats his full name, Takuma Yuzuki, back to him with visible curiosity. Sver suggests treating the situation as a give-and-take arrangement, while the young witch, intrigued by the word doctor, calls it a fitting introduction. Laying out the terms plainly, Sver offers Takuma safe passage to town in exchange for treating the group's injuries along the way. Without hesitation, Takuma accepts, prompting the cat-eared girl to relay his agreement to treat everyone in return for reaching town. One by one, the examinations begin, starting with Quarrel the archer, who explains that running through the forest to shoot her bow left her hurt. Tick bites cover her skin from the light armor she wears, and Takuma warns that traveling through mountains dressed this way invites deep cuts as well. Maja the mage steps forward next, admitting with visible embarrassment that her own spell suddenly misfired and caused her injury. Beneath the bandages Takuma removes, a burn comes into view, confirming that damage from one's own misfired magic is entirely possible. Rough reused fibers make up the bandage material, and Takuma notes that while they may reduce friction, leftover dirt could easily cause infection. Hemp seems to be the source, likely washed and reused to soften it, though Takuma concludes the design still needs real improvement, allowing him to continue treating her. Magia listens as Takuma silently reflects that if this counts as medical standard here, real caution will be necessary. Isekai'd the priest comes next, revealing that his stomach trouble stems from prioritizing proper meals for everyone else in the group. Food poisoning becomes Takuma's quick diagnosis, since traveling conditions and improper storage make such illness easy to catch in this world. Countless strong enemies have apparently crossed their path, according to Svars, leading Takuma to ask quietly whether the journey has truly been this harsh. A supposedly simple tracking quest has instead dragged on, Svarver admits, with their target still nowhere to be found and danger only growing. Refusing to give up, Magia urges the group to keep trying, but Server overrules her, insisting it may finally be time to stop. Guilt weighs on Server as he confesses he cannot keep putting Takuma in danger, admitting only now that he lacks what it takes to become one of the four sages. Turning away from the quest entirely, Sver announces they will head back to their village, leaving the others quiet under the weight of his decision. 3 more days will pass before they reach home. The group agrees, deciding simply to leave once everyone has recovered enough to travel. Eager to finish what he started, Takuma asks to continue the treatments, and Sver agrees, letting the care resume before their departure. Isekai'd mentions he has mastered clerical healing magic, adding that since they are heading back now, there is no reason left to conserve his mana. Surprise crosses Takuma's face at the revelation that healing magic exists here, and he asks bluntly whether Isekai'd's treatment could actually outperform his own methods. Genuine curiosity fills Takuma as he wonders quietly just what level of healing magic this world truly possesses beneath its surface. Determined despite the uncertainty, Takuma promises to give his medical skills everything he has, prompting Sver to simply tell him to give it a try. Before starting first aid on everyone, Takuma pauses to check his current inventory, revealing syringes, hypodermic needles, a thermometer, and a stethoscope laid out before him. Kneeling suddenly on the ground, Takuma realizes something crucial is missing, then asks with startling intensity whether anyone might be able to fetch him a beehive. Moments later, someone returns with one in hand, and Sver notes that this alone should be enough to keep the situation manageable for now. Learning that Isekai'd keeps some for knife maintenance, Takuma also thanks Quarrel for vegetable oil, calling both items an enormous help toward his plan. Explaining that the mixture is meant for Magia's treatment, Takuma heats the beehive to extract beeswax, then blends it with oil to form a proper ointment. Applying it carefully to Magia's wound, he covers it using syringe packaging, creating a moist dressing meant to shield her from the coarse rope-like bandage. Documented afterward as a beeswax ointment wet dressing. The method proves effective against rough bandages, though noted as inferior to true Vaseline or bleached beeswax. Turning next to Quarrel, Takuma reveals the ointment barely causes pain, surprising Server, who admits they had only ever discarded hives after taking the honey. Before treating her properly, Takuma removes an attached tick first, explaining that acting within a day makes safe removal possible, then decides her wound needs stitching. Lacking real suture thread, Takuma substitutes a strand of hair instead, warning Quarrel gently that the needle prick will sting for just a moment. Piercing carefully through the wound, he threads the hair in place of stitches, completing the suture with practiced precision that leaves the skin looking remarkably clean. Reflecting quietly, Takuma notes that this same hand once treated countless injured patients before his own accident ever happened. A familiar sensation lingers in his fingers, reminding him that this body still remembers exactly how healing work once felt. Ver admits he has seen sutured scars before, while Magia and Quarrel marvel nearby, calling the stitching surprisingly pretty despite its improvised origin. Staring at her own arm, Quarrel struggles to believe she has never seen a wound close so cleanly, especially using something as makeshift as hair. Watching quietly, Sever admits Magia's treatment was equally unlike anything he had witnessed before. Realizing this must be the true depth of Takuma's medical skill, irritation flickers across Svar's face as he wonders whether Isekai'd's shoddy magic might even be unnecessary. Though hearing such criticism from these two still stings his pride, turning toward Quarrel, Svar simply asks her to give him her arm, catching her slightly off guard with the sudden request. Praying under his breath, Svar channels his power into the wound, urging the vessel within her to be filled as light swirls around his outstretched hand. Convenience defines magic's advantage, he claims, insisting that someone with even his modest talent proves necessary, since it heals far faster than ordinary treatment. Startled by the sudden warmth, Quarrel gasps and calls out to Takuma, while Fervor mutters about pettiness, clearly needled by the earlier comparison to human medicine. Genuine amazement crosses Takuma's face as he watches the wound fuse back together instantly, calling it incredible despite Sver's gruff dismissal of the praise. Puzzled by the science behind it, Takuma mutters about cellular acceleration, wondering aloud whether magic capable of such perfect healing could really be so rare in this world. Embarrassment briefly interrupts the moment when Sever accuses him of staring too hard at Quarrel's skin, though the true reason traces back to his earlier suturing work. Confidence returns to Sever's voice as he declares that drugs and medicine remain entirely unreliable, questioning whether Takuma can truly make a living treating wounds this way. Quarrel gently scolds Isekai'd for his harsh words, admitting that while reliable medicines may be scarce here, such comments toward Takuma still feel unfair. Bowing his head in thought, Takuma questions whether general medicine has simply gone underdeveloped in this world, despite its abundance of magic and rough bandaging methods. Curiosity pushes him to approach Quarrel directly, asking if she might be willing to teach him a little about the medicines available here. Listing possibilities aloud, Takuma considers whether pain-suppressing medicine exists, learning that while such remedies are technically real, their effects remain disappointingly weak. Filling page after page with unfamiliar terms, translated into this world's language, Takuma finally declares the list complete after covering treatment after treatment. Reading through terms like hemostatic agents and non-steroidal medicine, Esfer stares in disbelief, realizing this stranger claims he can actually create supplies with proven efficacy. Clenching his fist with quiet resolve, Takuma insists that even in this unfamiliar world, these very hands hold the power to save countless people. Studying the growing list of medicines, Sver trembles slightly, recognizing that each item named could genuinely reshape how healing works across the entire world. Realizing Isekai'd remains the only one left untreated, Takuma apologizes for the delay, explaining he simply lost track while caring for everyone else first. Pride keeps Isekai'd from admitting weakness, insisting his condition isn't severe, and that he doesn't fully trust the group enough to accept help anyway. Guarded wariness still lingers around Takuma. The group notices, though Quarrel reasons that caution makes sense before agreeing it is time to move out together. Setting off once more, the group moves through the dense forest as Takuma gazes upward, quietly marveling at the reality that he is truly in another world. Anxiety and fear stir beneath his calm expression, and he wonders privately what fate awaits him now, sensing his heart race for reasons he cannot fully explain. Hope begins forming within him, a growing sense that this unfamiliar world might genuinely need someone with his particular skills before Sver calls out and pulls him back to the present. Along the journey, small moments unfold as he learns local words, tends to the herbivore creature nearby, and continues treating Sver's healing wound with quiet reassurance. Exhaustion catches up to Takuma on the brutal mountain paths, though Sver notes cheerfully that their destination now lies just within reach. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion erupts from the direction of the village, snapping everyone's attention toward the alarming sound and sending the group rushing forward in concern. Arriving at the scene, they find debris scattered everywhere, and Takuma stares in shock at the destruction stretching across what was once a peaceful settlement. From within the wreckage, a strange, unidentifiable monster emerges, catching everyone off guard as it suddenly lunges forward to attack without warning. The brave party runs in the direction of the settlement gate as alarms rise. Weapons ready, urgency spreading through the party. A white beast abruptly leaps from the trees, crossing the road with unnatural speed and drawing their concentrate. Shock freezes the party as the beast's form defies expectations. Dread replacing confidence throughout the pursuit. Takuma watches closely, noting injuries and movement, his clinical instincts awakening regardless of the threat. The beast retreats deeper into woodland, leaving uncertainty behind. After a brief exchange of signals, the party resolves to move, urgency guiding their next steps in the direction of the settlement. Within the settlement square, residents gather cautiously. As they walk through the streets, the party observes the surroundings, noting how firmly the community lives together. Takuma senses tension among the residents, his focus drawn to subtle movements and concerned expressions nearby. At the center, an wounded man appears, shifting the party's focus in the direction of immediate clinical concern. Recognition spreads as the party identifies a respected settlement guard, confirming the circumstance is more grave than expected. Respectful gestures follow, showing trust between the residents and the adventurers who returned without delay. Account of the earlier chaos clarifies that the beast retreated abruptly. Tension rises when a violent strike sends a person flying, revealing power beyond ordinary settlement defenses. Recollections of past disasters surface, hardening resolve as the party prepares for what may come next. Discussion among the party narrows the threat, concluding the beast revealed intent but lacked controlled aggression. Confidence shifts in the direction of Takuma, as the settlement leader reveals injuries suffered while protecting others. Prior to care starts, the party pauses, allowing Takuma to properly assess the wound and surroundings. Alarm crosses his face when bite marks seem unveiled, signaling a risk beyond basic physical trauma. Concern settles over the party as Takuma prepares to act, comprehension the consequences of delayed care. Suspicion lingers as the party questions the beast's behavior, while Takuma silently prepares to explain his concerns. Concentrate shifts when Takuma reveals his background, causing brief surprise among those gathered in the street. The settlement leader extends his wounded limb, placing responsibility directly in Takuma's hands. Doubt arises from past treatments, yet Takuma remains firm. A clear decision follows as Takuma moves ahead, prepared to apply medical knowledge beyond this world's norms. Takuma requests clean cloth and materials, steadily outlining what he needs as the settlement leader listens closely. Residents gather at a distance while care begins, watching with interest as Takuma works differently from local healers. The wound is cleaned and sealed with careful precision, surprising onlookers who expected magic or tools they recognized, stressing that neglect would worsen the wound over time. Comprehension spreads among the group as the leader accepts this unrecognized but deliberate method of healing. Relief mixes with uncertainty as the care ends, leaving some impressed while others silently question the approach. Skepticism surfaces when the bandaged limb seems shown, doubt lingering over whether actual healing has occurred. A fresh concern interrupts the instant as news spreads of another person crumbling on the road. The party realizes the wounded individual is essential to the settlement, raising urgency across the gathered crowd. Takuma reacts it formally, stepping forward regardless of hesitation. Concern shows on several faces as urgency grows. Movement breaks the stillness when someone collapses in front, drawing residents and adventurers into sudden motion. Without delay, aid follows close behind, instincts pushing everyone to move faster toward danger. Confusion lingers in one's thoughts while others press forward. Tension rising with every step taken. Arrival at the gathering hall marks a turning point, where numerous eyes wait and a existence hangs in balance. Entering the hall, unease settles at once, and silent breathing replaces the noise from beyond. Rows of residents lie wrapped in blankets, caregivers kneeling beside them with anxious, exhausted expressions. A closer look reveals shared frailty spreading through the room, suggesting something beyond basic wound. The scale of the circumstance becomes obvious as bodies fill the space, each revealing similar signs of decline. Realization strikes that this is not an incident, but a widespread state demanding swift clinical judgment. A recollection surfaces of a curse announced years ago, warning the people to abandon their land or face ruin. Connections form as the party realizes the demon responsible was not once genuinely defeated, only driven away. Uncertainty deepens when the pattern proposes deliberate retaliation rather than random misfortune. Discussion turns in the direction of responsibility, recognizing the sickness as an act meant to punish the settlement. Resolution settles in as concentrate shifts to protecting the residents. Within the hall, Takuma notices several residents lying weakly on the floor. His concentrate shifts to an enormous crystal enshrined near the back, clearly treated with reverence. The man wonders if the object serves as a concentrate of local faith or mystical power. Close by, an old woman receives care while mystical energy subtly gathers around her, silently observing. Takuma evaluates her signs, preparing to understand the cause further deeply. Takuma listens as the residents explain that Isekai'd, though skilled in combat. He observes the hall, packed with suffering sufferers, and reflects on how a single sorcery spell seems to cure all illnesses, which feels unnatural. This leads him to suspect a mismatch in care, like employing antibiotics against a virus. The man notices outdated methods being applied: incense burning, dyes, even bloodletting. To him, it resembles a scene from medieval remedy, driven by speculation rather than expertise. Takuma starts to suspect the demon race might be far more perilous than dragons. The girl urges him to act, telling him no hero in this realm can deal with curses. She pleads for assistance to rescue both Isekai'd and the community from the spreading threat. Though unrecognized with curses, Takuma recalls he's never seen anything like this in his realm. As a physician, he resolves to rely on obvious signs and evidence to guide his next step. Takuma looks over the sufferers and realizes the so-called curse of the demon race is likely a misread disease. Gripping someone's hand, he reminds himself that clinical care hasn't truly been proven ineffective against it. He declares his identity as a physician, someone who helps those in agony. With resolve, he promises to do all things he can to save them. Moved by their plea, he regains goal in his once numb right hand and takes his first moves ahead. Takuma nears Gerald and his wife, who anxiously ask for assistance. Remaining firm, he requests details about the curse, seeking expertise to challenge the unrecognized. He thinks that even in this world, saving someone starts with comprehension their affliction. With the sufferer's consent, he begins gathering clinical history and relevant signs. As he examines a handwritten report, dietary patterns and timelines offer clues to what may genuinely be affecting them. Takuma studies the notes again, questioning why two people living together show distinct signs. The settlement starts to quiet under the evening sky. Abruptly, a horse refuses to move, alarming its owner, who fears it may also be cursed. The man watches as the man desperately tries to feed the horse, prompting it to regain power. Witnessing both people and animals suffer helplessly, Takuma reflects on how dread defines the residents' view of the curse. As night falls, the party seems invited to stay at a villager's home for rest. One man questions Takuma if he would join him for a drink, seeking silent company. With a gentle smile, the older man encourages them to relax and hands over a bottle. Prior to leaving, he entrusts Isekai'd's care to Takuma, expressing sincere gratitude. Traveling beside his ally, Takuma realizes the man carries burdens he can't share with the others. Under the moonlit sky, the tavern welcomes them with barrels overflowing on the table. Takuma seems stunned by the excessive amount of alcohol, questioning if this is normal here. Isekai'd starts drinking, mentioning past rumors about demonkind and the Sacred Four. With grave look, he downs the drink in one long gulp, unfazed. Grows concerned, understanding Isekai'd may be far more experienced with alcohol than he expected. Isekai'd's face turns bright red from drinking, alarming Takuma with its sudden intensity. Regardless of the haze, Isekai'd thanks Takuma for his aid and acknowledges the confusion he must feel. Under the moonlight, he silently questions to rely on Takuma, just for a while. While the man hesitates, Takuma silently observes, waiting for the account to unfold. Healing in this realm seems divided into two distinct forms, one for closing injuries, the other for correcting abnormal conditions. Honored as priests, those who wield healing spells seem uncommon. Even though Takuma possesses purification sorcery, it merely functions under the influence of alcohol. Previously protected by night patrols, the region dropped into threat following those patrols ceased 2 years prior. A disturbing revelation emerges as Takuma examines the drawing the demon tribe had cursed the land. Even following defeating the target demon, the man reflects bitterly on the existence that his homeland remains vulnerable. Acknowledging his power, the church recognized him as a worthy candidate to become one of the four saints. Such a title could restore the patrols and command the formerly active Holy Knights. He admits that even taking the first step in the direction of that goal has already failed. Regardless of aid from his allies, the man failed to make use of healing or purification. Irritation builds as he condemns himself for dreaming of becoming one of the four saints. Takuma watches silently, recognizing the man's despair, so similar to his own feelings of helplessness in the realm he came from. He resolves to teach them that it's time to stop caring for all things like a game, hoping it can assist Askley find goal and power once more. Unsure of himself, Askley hesitates when presented the opportunity to learn clinical techniques. Though unsure, he hears encouragement. Takuma assures him that he's capable and should believe in himself. Takuma insists that it is not just empty reassurance. He's seen Askley's actions over the past several days. The man reminds Askley of his constant concern for others. Takuma affirms that Askley possesses the qualities of a healer and can use his methods to assist others. Askley reflects silently, then accepts the circumstance. There's no better path forward, asking to be taught the clinical techniques, desperate to defend his homeland by any means. He resolves to stay, even if just for a while, sharing a drink in agreement. Takuma clarifies his statement from his homeland. Drinking together carries deeper, meaning beyond companionship. With raised mugs, they make a vow to uphold their vow and defend those they cherish. A faint smile forms on Askley's face as silent determination starts to replace doubt. Takuma abruptly questions if Askley has somewhere he wants to go, presenting a document packed with notes. Takuma tries to explain, though Askley struggles to read it. Regardless of the confusion, Askley pledges to follow Takuma anywhere, trusting him fully. With fresh resolve, he questions Takuma to teach him all things he doesn't yet understand, now calling him teacher. Morning arrives, and a previously ill man seems stunned. His fever is gone and the critical bite wound barely remains. Beyond, Takuma and Askley collapse from exhaustion. Afterward, they gather around a table as others eagerly await an account of what happened. Takuma confidently reveals their findings. The curse of the demon tribe has eventually been recognized. Meanwhile, two girls whisper nervously, questioning if Takuma truly used the correct remarks throughout his big reveal. Explaining that he and Askley investigated food sources and water near the grazing areas. He identifies an unrecognized wild plant as the probable cause, something people avoid eating but animals may have consumed. The plant's toxicity affects nursing infants through contaminated milk. Clarifies that the toxin dissolves easily in fat, explaining its aura in animal milk following ingestion. Naming it milk sickness, Takuma confirms the plant's identity matches cases he encountered in his previous realm. A diagram of the plant reveals its lethal effects. Even little doses can cause critical signs and death within days. Understanding the plant might be the genuine source of the suffering they had blamed on a curse. Eliminating the poisonous plant must grow their assignment. Yet, the older man acknowledges it's worth testing rather than relying on vague treatments. Concerned, he asks if healing is still feasible. His wife may already be affected by the plant's toxin. Takuma stands up with urgency, declaring that toxin care starts with the fundamentals, and they still have a chance. The atmosphere lightens as optimism comes back to the room. The man eventually sees Takuma as someone genuinely worth trusting and respecting. Encouraged by Takuma's determination, Askley is moved to act, prepared to aid and believe in his healing skills. With a little smile, Takuma offers his fist. Askley pauses, then reaches out to meet it. Takuma remained greeted with respect as he arrived, a fist bump marking mutual acknowledgement, rather than accept praise. Takuma insisted the aid had gone both ways. Hearing this, the elder remarked that such remarks might hold further power than remedy itself, visibly moved. Rising with goal, the elder ordered everyone to gather the townspeople without delay. Though surprised, Takuma replied with a quiet nod, prepared to take part in whatever lay ahead. At the front, the elder remained confidently, flanked by allies. As murmurs spread, he announced a single reason for summoning them all, capturing everyone's focus. He challenged them directly, asking if they were prepared to risk their lives to defend their town. Shock trailed, but he bore on. Revealing the doctor they brought back possessed rare skill and insight. Raising a peculiar herb, he suggested a fresh possibility. The elder held up the plant, explaining it had grown widespread and now bore a perilous toxin harmful to livestock. The man claimed the demon race scattered the plant as part of a curse. News trailed that the sick could still recover thanks to the physician's expertise and timely discovery. Nevertheless, eliminating the toxin would provoke the demons into a further direct response. Tension increased as the townsfolk dreaded a full assault. The elder warned of the power within the demon ranks. He urged everyone to prepare themselves mentally if they genuinely wished to defend the town, then concluded his speech. Whispers trailed while the curse had been solved. When questioned about their genuine power, he admitted few encounters, but acknowledged some enemies were indeed formidable. They consented it was better to treat the sickness and wait for the demons to make their move. The townspeople, once packed with silent fear, discovered new goal. Acknowledging their attempts, the elder praised the party as true heroes of the community, their actions already making a difference. Regardless of the advancement, one member warned that real threat was likely to come next. The elder admitted their stay wasn't permanent, unlike the residents who had no other place to go. Choosing conviction over security,
the young man announced he would stay. Moved by the determination around him, Takuma hesitated, yet couldn't ignore the people he had come to respect. Though he admitted he couldn't struggle, he announced his resolve to help as a physician. Hearing this, the elder smiled faintly, recognizing Takuma's sincere heart. Grateful for his aid, they reminded him to flee if threat genuinely struck. Eventually, leadership was passed to Takuma, entrusted with observing over those who stayed behind. Takuma remained stunned to be entrusted with such responsibility. Meanwhile, the party joked about their sudden rise as heroes, feeling both pressure and pride from Gerald's praise. Turning grave, the girl questioned what they were supposed to do next, unsure about their role. Suggestions remained made: caring for milk sickness, removing poisonous plants, and preparing for tomorrow attacks. Regardless of some bravado, they all understood they remained still inexperienced youths, not yet ready for full combat. Takuma remembered Gerald's remarks, entrusting him with the responsibility of protecting the community in his absence. He reaffirmed their role to begin with healing the townspeople, reminding everyone that revealing panic would only expanded fear to those observing. Rescuing lives, he stated, was their assignment, and in doing so, they were becoming true heroes. The group silently agreed to his resolve, their expressions a mix of surprise and newfound respect. Takuma began organizing the team, prioritizing sufferers in critical state and issuing instructions swiftly. Each member replied swiftly, preparing materials, checking on sufferers, and boiling water, all moving with urgency and focus. He directed Isekai'd to assist, and without delay, the warrior trailed his lead. Observing him work, the others commented that Takuma resembled a teacher from their academy days. Inspired, they resolved to call him sensei, recognizing his composed authority in the face of crisis. The group consented to place their trust in Takuma, who steadily named everyone to follow his lead. With assurance, he was questioned what came next. Takuma didn't hesitate. He unsealed his notes and began teaching the basics of toxin care to his new team. Meanwhile, existence resumed beyond the hall, with people gathering in the woodland. Among them, someone silently discovered the cursed plant had been intentionally planted formerly again. An enigmatic woman remained hidden, gripping the cursed plant, questioning why only this place was spared. Takuma announced the start of a basic lesson in detox care. Meanwhile, Magia silently handled a jar of honey, noticing she was the merely one not tending to sufferers. Puzzled and left out, she commenced to question whether her task was a sheet of punishment. Takuma softly clarified that unboiled water poses health risks and should be avoided. An illustrated guide unveiled how pathogens in well water could lead to grave infections if not properly treated. Takuma warned the group that unknown water could worsen a sufferer's state, especially during travel. Understanding the risks, Magia employed sorcery to precisely control the water's temperature, adjusting it to a safe warmth. Clarified, they would create oral rehydration and saline solutions. The party listened as he recognized the components, noting their effectiveness in restoring hydration. Thou questioned to explain further, Takuma labored to describe how liquid absorption worked within the form. One of the party members placed his trust in Takuma, prepared to follow his guidance without delay. Takuma outlined essential steps for caring for poisoning, including symptomatic care and the use of antidotes. Even though he lacked the resources for a suitable antidote, with assurance, Takuma encouraged them to believe in themselves and stay focused on the care plan. Moved by his remarks, the party reflected on how his approach gave optimism even in hopeless conditions. The party pledged to help save the town and questioned Takuma to explain the next steps of care. The man started with how to block toxin absorption, suggesting vomiting or activated charcoal if toxin had been consumed. Understanding tainted food had worsened the sufferer's state, learning that hydration could aid detoxification through natural bodily functions. Takuma evaluated the circumstance, noting mild cases could benefit from oral rehydration, while more grave ones required closer monitoring. A recipe diagram illustrated how to create oral rehydration fluid, employing water, salt, and honey in specific amounts. Takuma handed the mixture to two members, assigning them to treat sufferers with mild signs. He asked Magia to assist using her magic, and she agreed to without delay. He commenced preparing a saline solution, boiling and cooling the water before adding salt. Magia completed the disinfection step, but a teammate questioned how to treat sufferers unable to consume anything orally. Takuma introduced a little injection device, explaining how it could deliver fluid employing a needle and pump mechanism. The man remembered older techniques that involved repeated punctures into veins or thighs. He clarified how fluids could be delivered through exposed blood vessels, though the concept unsettled Magia. Smiling, Takuma stated they'd only try simpler techniques for now but suggested exploring further options afterward, revealing how warm water could be safely prepared for use with the injection approach. Observing as the material softened under the heat, one of the party members observed how the tip of the container stretched and flowed with the stream of water. Takuma understood their tools had limitations, and emphasized the need for better clinical materials, connected it to a vessel, and tested its function by clearing air through water flow. A diagram detailed the improvised IV setup, revealing how simple resources like syringes and ceramic pots could support care, explaining how to safely fix the tube with bandages. He stated that if hydration resumed and signs eased, healing through fluid and food would probably follow. With only 2 syringes left, Takuma noted one critical sufferer stayed, while others praised the advancement. Encouraged by their victory, he rallied the team to keep up their attempts with renewed power. Abruptly, they encountered thick, creeping roots in front, stopping Takuma in shock as an unrecognized threat emerged. Gerald remained alerted to the spreading roots invading the community, their unnatural movement drawing his concern. The man arrived at a gate overtaken by twisting tendrils. Understanding the threat remained far worse than expected, telling others to alert the townspeople and escape while they could. After sending help away, Gerald moved ahead alone, decided to confront the danger ahead. Emerging from the roots was an enigmatic, horned woman, her eerie aura signaling an even larger menace. Gerald neared the horned woman cautiously as she warned him not to act recklessly. A tense exchange trailed, with both gauging each other's intentions amid the corrupted woodland. The woman raised her limb, claiming her goal was to halt the strategy unfolding within the community. Gerald acknowledged her motive, stating he had come to stop her interference. With a fierce look, she lashed out, declaring that merely they surviving remained unacceptable. As Root struck down with violent force, Gerald narrowly dodged the assault and readied himself to counter. With a fierce leap, he plunged his sword in the direction of the mass of writhing roots, aiming for an essential blow. Though astonished by his power, the demon woman stayed unfazed. Gerald announced he'd burn all things down to test whether he could genuinely defeat her. In a fiery charge, he reached her position, blade raised and prepared to strike. As Gerald struck, the woman talked mysteriously about unseen truths that everyone ignored in the realm. The woman reached in the direction of him, declaring that even those who dropped from the sky weren't exempt from fate. A unusual sensation overcame Gerald, his instincts warning him something remained wrong. Roots abruptly entangled him, binding his limbs in formidable strands he hadn't observed until too late. Grinning coldly, the woman mocked him, claiming no one would come to rescue him now. Panic expanded through the building as residents shouted that a demon had emerged amidst the growing roots. Takuma's party swiftly understood the roots were demonic in origin and looked to each other for a solution. They consented their top priority was evacuating the numerous sick people trapped within. Under Ryuto's lead, the party steadily guided sufferers beyond to safety. The party's escape halted when they reached the entrance, totally blocked by an enormous wall of tangled roots. Ryuto questioned Magia if she could use sorcery to turn the ground and break through the roots. Chanting with full force, Magia unleashed a formidable earth spell that broke the terrain violently. Despite the enormous impact, the roots stayed totally unaffected, leaving the group stunned elsewhere. The horned demon discovered Gerald restrained and helpless within the tangled mass. Takuma and the others recognized Gerald, understanding he was captured by the demon before their eyes. The woman points in the direction of the man in the white coat and offers something unseen. From the writhing vines, a tendril extends and hands him a little item. The woman states she will let him use the item, yet in return she wants him to answer 2 questions. Prior to an enormous tree pulsing with power, the physician is granted access to a rare panacea on the state he answers 2 questions. The party's strongest fighter has fallen, and the magician's spells seem useless. Realization dawns someone knows he treated the toxin. A composed observer watches, stating that careful handling of the unusual physician leads to fewer regrets. The woman's first question, does he know of any other hidden remedy besides the one he employed? The warrior mentions a rumored cure stated to heal any affliction, though he's not formally seen proof of its power. With a grave gaze, the girl questions her second question, was it the black-haired man who rescued them? The man treated the toxin. Her silent response reveals she suspected as much. She starts explaining, though demons are powerful, power alone has left them suffering. Others may be rescued, but she thinks her kind will not once be. Even though unsure, Takuma tries to describe the conversation, sensing it wasn't completely meaningless. Rising prior to them, the girl presents a glowing plant and questions if it seems recognizable. Recognition flickers. Takuma recalls merchants occasionally selling it as an uncommon crop named rice. To their surprise, she calls it a divine offering and speaks of her distant homeland. With a heavy tone, she reveals a plague linked to the rice that devastated her people. The girl clarifies others have also suffered and reveals she participated in experiments to understand the cause. All at once, a tentacle reaches in the direction of Takuma, identifying him as a new source of information. Takuma seems caught and strangled mid-protest, while his allies shout in panic, following an instant. She releases him unharmed and tells them to use the remedy as they please, As she turns to leave, Takuma seems warned not to confidence the drug's effects so easily. Takuma pleads to examine the wounded man. And following an instant's pause, the girl grants permission. He swiftly assesses the wound and suspects a femoral fracture, deeply concerned about internal bleeding. A sudden movement catches his eye. Something remained, discreetly slipped near the sufferer. Alarmed, Takuma insists the man could die from blood loss if left untreated any longer. Though skeptical, the girl relents. Takuma readies himself to act prior to. It's too late. Takuma notices subtle movement. Gerald's fingers twitch in a deliberate pattern. It wasn't accidental. Feigning unconsciousness, Gerald seems creating a perfect opportunity to strike when least expected. The demon girl hasn't caught on yet. Takuma wonders if timing it right might rescue them. Still, he hesitates. Acting recklessly now could jeopardize Gerald's existence completely. Though survival seems feasible, internal bleeding carries on while Gerald lies quietly, awaiting the right moment. Facing the residents, Takuma firmly instructs them not to move Gerald and to maintain him still. The man agrees to go along with the demon girl, believing it may peacefully end the standoff. Caught off guard, Takuma seems roughly pulled forward by the tentacle, startling everyone close by. Abruptly, the giant tree surrounding the village starts to dissolve and release glowing particles. Though the immediate threat has passed, concern lingers. Takuma's departure might bring fresh dangers. Isekai'd grips his weapon in irritation, unable to suppress his anger as Takuma seems taken. Gerald regains consciousness and calls out just as Isekai'd turns to leave. He reflects on Takuma's price, choosing to risk himself for the community's security instead of fleeing. Observing Isekai'd walk in front, Gerald admits it once more. Takuma had rescued them all. Resolved, Isekai'd resolves to repay the debt and commands the others to evacuate the townspeople. Isekai'd questions how Gerald could even be remaining. Doubt creeps in as he wonders if he's genuinely making the right decision by letting Takuma go. Before he can decide alone, the rest of the party silently appears, remaining by his side. The party's aura surprises him, the determination in their eyes obvious. They refuse to let Takuma face this alone. The man reflects silently. Maybe they all had a role to play, and it wasn't too late. Clenching his fist, Isekai'd recalls what Takuma had taught them. There's constantly a way forward. He rallies the party, declaring it is time to start over and struggle with goal. Together, they prepare to begin their own expedition, no longer in Takuma's shadow. With resolve, they take over the assignment to pursue the demon threat and defend others. Gerald watches quietly, understanding they've seen the enemy's power and know it can still be defeated. With assurance, the mage assures Gerald that if they find an opening, escape is feasible. Another ally moves ahead, asking Gerald to trust them. Their combined strength will prove enough. Isekai'd pleads for recognition, hoping they'll be seen as heroes who rescued the community. Hesitating, Gerald questions their strategy, unsure if they genuinely have a strategy to win. Yet a silent instant of reflection softens him. He's seen Takuma's courage and now understands why they believe. In front of the party, a man steadily states his own frailty. The party's expressions shift from confusion to concern as they try to grasp the meaning behind his unusual behavior. Elsewhere, a pair from the team identifies a single river in front, an ideal route. Raising his tone with resolve, one adventurer asks for the enchanted sword. Silently observing, their leader recalls the training once given, sensing the instant has come to put it to use, reminding her of its power and threat if misused. Other members receive encouragement, each praised for their strengths and assigned roles in the coming struggle. Isekai'd, the silent warrior, seems tasked with defending the team, already comprehending the weight of his responsibility. Regardless of their obvious plan, the elder warns that charging through gaps remains a perilous tactic. Final instructions are given: use the sword without delay and escape in the direction of the trade city if overwhelmed. Under a clear sky, the group begins their expedition toward the forest path with resolved silence. Abruptly, the silver-haired girl gets angry. Following her clothes are soiled, prompting tension among the party. Noticing her response, the physician suspects she may be searching for a rare cure or care, confronting him with a direct and unsettling question. Though puzzled, he clarifies his uncertainty while she reflects quietly on her existence and purpose. Confesses he remains summoned from another realm, denying any link to the enigmatic term Otoshi Nushi. The woman reacts with disbelief, pulling him along and demanding he continue explaining without delay. Remaining apart, she defines the term creatures dropped from another realm into calamity zones. The man recalls a former warning about replacing what is lost to maintain balance, echoing in his thoughts. Abruptly, her look shifts. An arrow flies toward her, catching her totally off guard. Takuma realizes the arrows remained meant for someone else. Probably Quarrel. As threat closes in, surrounded by sharp roots, the silver-haired girl prepares to retaliate, yet Takuma urgently holds her back. A sudden explosion hits the ground near them regardless of their attempt, They fail to fully dodge, gripping tightly to her. Takuma steadies himself while the enemy's next move nears from a distance. The party are caught off guard as explosive arrows erupt around them, forcing them into close cover. Observing the woodland cautiously, the silver-haired girl senses movement and suspects a diversion tactic. The woman's eyes widen as flames abruptly fly in from an unexpected direction. Dodging swiftly, she observes the foe's advance while the rest of her team readies for fight. Amid the chaos, she considers employing merely the sorcery sword as a defensive option. Regardless of Takuma's warning to retreat, Askley smiles and prepares to confront the foe head-on. As chaos unfolds, Askley abruptly charges forward, leaving Takuma stunned by his bold move. With precision and force, Askley lands a devastating punch, shattering the foe's defense. While the others scramble, Magia prepares to cast a spell as tension builds around Takuma. Flames surge through the battlefield, yet the silver-haired girl remains unfazed by the fire's intensity. From within the blaze, Coral emerges, his form cloaked in flames, prepared to strike. Coral bursts from the flames and attacks, forcing the silver-haired girl to block instinctively. The woman lands safely, unscathed, earning praise from both Takuma and Askley for her composure. With the foe now pushed back, Askley urges Magia to unleash her sorcery. Prior to it is too late. Gathering all her power, Magia channels it into the sorcery sword. Fueling an intense spell, the blast erupts forward, and as it strikes, the girl watches in stunned silence. The woman stares in front as a blazing wave of destruction races across the battlefield. Takuma runs through the chaos, overwhelmed by the blast's power, until Coral shields him from the flames. An enormous explosion engulfs all things in sight, shaking the ground with its impact. Following surviving, Coral carries Takuma to security, grateful for the physician's earlier help. As Takuma smiles in relief, an unusual, smoldering object seems left behind in the smoke, narrows her eyes, determination building within the haze. She moves ahead, resolving to act before escape becomes unachievable. Takuma watches, realizing he may be involved more than expected. Abruptly, a strange object wraps around Takuma, stunning everyone without speaking. Takuma collapses abruptly in the middle of a conversation. The others react in shock as he falls unconscious with a critical wound. A cloaked woman steadily tells the party they no longer need to be on alert. The woman declares the incident seems over, turning away as tension lingers in the air. A bear-like ally desperately tries to revive Takuma, offering him remedy in a panic. Another man moves in front, brushing the others aside. Tears stream down the blond man's face as he named out to his fallen mentor. Close by, broke wooden stakes lay scattered, soaked in blood, a grim reminder of the assault's brutality. Just as existence had begun to advance, it now halted again. Gripping his torso, the man vowed to rescue his teacher, refusing to give in to despair. As his hand reached toward the sky, a faint light responded, bearing his desperate hope upward. Floating through the sky, the unusual wooden device bore a silent purpose, unrecognized to those below. Elsewhere, a white cat was dispatched by a cloaked person, leaping into action from an enigmatic glowing chamber. The cat appeared in the forest all at once, drawing the group's startled focus. Without delay, it neared Takuma's body, licking his wounds with quiet determination. A soft radiance radiated. Takuma stirred, his injuries visibly healing to everyone's astonishment. Relief packed the party as Takuma stood up, fully healed, prompting cheers from his allies. Regardless of the joy, the mood shifted when the leader warned everyone to stay alert. Something remained still amiss. Suspicion grew as the cat commenced to melt into a shadow, vanishing into the ground before their eyes. A sharp gasp escaped the fox-eared girl. The woman's eyes widened with sudden realization. Prior to she could act, a formidable entity emerged, surging forward with blinding force. Every one froze as the formerly healing cat transformed, revealing its genuine form, an ominous, mystical beast with braided mane and glaring eyes. Fear struck the fox girl as the beast's jaws bared, its aura radiating primal threat. Tension escalated. The woman remained her ground, acknowledging the beast's immense power. Witnessing the threat, the others retreated in the direction of a close-by crystal for cover. Without delay, the girl charged. Gripping nothing back, she launched a fierce strike. With a confident gesture, the fox girl prepared her spell, believing she had locked onto her foe. Her assault struck, yet the beast had dodged, employing its agility to evade the blast just in time. In a sudden reversal, the mystical beast launched a counterattack, striking her down with brutal force. In pain and pinned beneath debris, she labored to rise, irritation clouding her look. The very beast that once assaulted their community now appeared hesitant. Doubts increased had it come to defend, not harm. Blade in hand, the blond man neared the fallen fox girl, intent on ending the conflict. Takuma rushed forward, protesting. The man reminded them that the girl remained a demon one who had killed prior to. Yeah, even Takuma hesitated. The woman looked remorseful, wounded, and not completely hostile. Extending his arms, he insisted sparing her existence remained the merely path everyone could live with. A troubling question remained raised. What if others from the demon clan arrived seeking revenge? Takuma reminded them that brute force wouldn't constantly guarantee victory, especially if reinforcements arrived. The man emphasized that survival frequently depended on prioritizing allies and making difficult decisions. Instead of execution, he proposed an alternative: they would spare her and use her. Approaching the wounded girl calmly, he readied himself to offer a choice rather than punishment. Takuma knelt beside the girl, asking if she remained searching for a cure to a sickness that had destroyed her homeland. Promising to heal it, he made a mission she must assistance them in return. The woman's eyes widened, stunned by his remarks, as he softly talked her name Isekai'd. He announced she would stay under their watch until everyone grew powerful enough to face her as equals. Remedy, he insisted, was constantly personal, and not once about power. Takuma reflected on those who had devoted themselves to rescuing lives. He affirmed that his assignment was not formally about wealth or power, but about irreplaceable lives. Even if kindness wasn't guaranteed, a healer's duty lasted until the end, regardless of the sufferer's intent. Still, he couldn't assistance yet act, moved by instinct to help anyone in need. Regardless of criticizing Takuma's ideals, the blonde man admitted he valued everyone's existence just as much. Facing his allies, Takuma questioned if they could genuinely confidence the path he chose. Regardless of initial doubts, his allies voiced their agreement. They saw meaning in his conviction and potential in the path in front. Yet the dilemma stayed: what would they do with the defeated beast girl? Isekai'd, the magical creature, gently picked her up with silent comprehension. It started to retreat. The girl hesitated, then fled, leaving behind a swirl of mixed feelings and unanswered questions. Takuma observed the girl's fall, understanding she may have suffered a critical spinal wound from the impact. She labored to understand the numbness spreading through her legs. Worried, Takuma examined her state. Regardless of her protests, he started checking for neurological responses, eliciting a sharp cry of agony. The man's suspicion was verified. She revealed signs of traumatic lumbar disc herniation. With a grave look, he muttered the diagnosis aloud, stunning the party into silence. An anatomical diagram unveiled the severity of her state: a lumbar herniated disc compressing the nerves. Takuma cautiously asked permission to examine her elbow. She silently nodded and extended her arm. He clarified the phenomenon: pressure triggering agony down the arm, mirroring what was happening in her lower form. Unless the pressure on her spine remained relieved, her paralysis could worsen, risking permanent damage. Looking in the direction of Isekai'd, Takuma questioned if such trauma could be healed with sorcery alone. Verified that ordinary healing sorcery couldn't fix a spinal hernia. Only a few honored saints could go further. Takuma presented a solution: a surgical approach. The man revealed a diagram, explaining how to cut around the muscles and extract the hernia. The girl reacted with disbelief. Cutting into bone, while conscious, sounded terrifying. Smiling, Takuma announced it remained time to advance surgical history by 1,000 years. He then turned to Isekai'd, prepared to ask something essential. Party arrived at a cottage used by community alchemists, now borrowed for an urgent goal. Within, the girl was laid out as Takuma examined the setting. Regardless of its unusual setup, it would do. He apologized for the lack of clarity, yet urged her to let preparations begin. She consented with a silent nod. Without delay, Takuma started readying the workspace, giving precise instructions. The witch, puzzled and overwhelmed by the pungent fumes, reluctantly commenced assisting. She handed over a little amount of gathered liquid, still far from sufficient, yet advancement nonetheless. Takuma checked on the sufferer as the concoction bore on to brew nearby. The man clarified it was an early anesthetic essential for agony-free surgery to begin. Takuma completed a special anesthetic mixture in his lab. The man reviewed its history, noting its reliability throughout past wars. Modern anesthetics had issues, yet this approach worked without complex gear. To proceed, he required a mouse for testing and started searching. A girl swiftly brought one, helping him move the experiment forward. Takuma readied himself to demonstrate how anesthesia could ease surgical pain employing a live mouse. The man soaked cloth with the anesthetic and sealed it within a jar with the animal. Moments afterward, the mouse dropped unconscious, unaffected by physical touch or noise. Even when lightly cut, it stayed still, proving the anesthesia's effectiveness. Witnesses remained stunned by the concept of sleeping through agony and waking fully treated. The party compared the anesthetic's effect to divine remedy that even the dying wouldn't resist. Moved by the results, the girl silently questioned Takuma to heal the wounded. As he stepped out, the mouse stirred its anesthesia, eventually wearing off. Everyone stared in awe, amazed. The beast revealed no sign of trauma. Impressed, the woman admitted his abilities surpassed even the legends of their realm. A warrior presented a mystical contract, demanding a perilous vow. The terms remained harsh, Breaking the vow would cause physical harm. Still, the girl agreed to it, resolved to save more lives than had been lost. With resolve, she pricked her finger, sealing the pact without delay. Though reluctant, Takuma recognized the necessity of trust beyond remarks, even with former enemies. Takuma consented to the terms, and the contract was sealed in mystical fire. A reminder trailed. This was no ordinary document, but a genuine mystical item, soon following. They shifted concentrate to preparing boiled cloth for upcoming use. A huge ceremonial pot was unveiled, its goal unclear but intriguing. Without delay, the group started pouring ingredients into the vessel, prepared to assist. Askley ensured no raw water stayed, activating the pot with sorcery. In an instant, the enormous cauldron erupted into a bubbling boil. Takuma remained stunned, learning the pot was enchanted to skip time-consuming rituals. Following assigning tasks, Askley bore instruments while Takuma prepared the next steps. He came back to the sufferer, announcing that only 2 final preparations stayed. Takuma started with a detailed examination to pinpoint the affected area, employing reflex and sensory response tests. The man cautiously tapped and pressed along her limbs, checking for reactions. Abruptly, he unveiled a full skeletal model beneath the bed, startling the sufferer with its lifelike form. Though she was shaken, Takuma apologized, explaining it would assistance improve the opportunities of surgical victory. The man then described how muscles and nerves align with bone structure, employing anatomical expertise to prepare precisely. Takuma silently reflected on the unusual fact that this realm's anatomy mirrored that of Earth. He understood he hadn't even asked for her name, she responded, slightly guarded. He knelt beside her and stated that from this point on, her existence remained in his hands. Even though he acknowledged her fears, he vowed to face the procedure with all things he had. Looking into her eyes, he questioned her to confidence him and place her existence in his care. The surgical team remained prepared around the sufferer, fully suited and masked as the sun set overhead them. Takuma emphasized hygiene, covering heads, wearing gloves, and sealing all contamination risks prior to proceeding. Last checks were made. Anesthesia was administered while the sufferer's breathing was monitored. Beyond, others waited anxiously. Once unconscious, the team cautiously pivoted forward to her side as the lead gave the go in front. The operation, marked by silence and precision, remained about to begin. Takuma instructed the team to apply anesthetic with precise measurements and monitor breathing closely for any changes. A classic open drop approach was employed, basic and effective, requiring only cloth and controlled application. Regardless of his calm tone, tension expanded as Takuma reminded everyone of their roles and the importance of coordination. The man's hand trembled, betraying the pressure he felt as the lead surgeon. The man admitted his lack of hands-on experience, having studied theory while recovering from a limb wound. A single misstep could sever a nerve and leave Foran paralyzed. The weight of precision overwhelmed him. The man's assistant reassured him, admitting even adventurers dread mistakes that cost lives. Reflecting on their shared hardships, one striving without talent, the other healing regardless of past injury, they recognized their mirrored paths. With clarity, the assistant announced their next steps remained. Now obvious, facing each other, they pledged to grow the actual thing from now on together. Their eyes met in quiet comprehension. No remarks were required, the resolve was mutual. The party sealed their confidence with a fist bump, united by goal and pressure. Takuma requested the surgical kit. The procedure in front would require specific instruments for spinal hernia care. Each instrument served a precise function, protecting nerves, cutting bone, or isolating the hernia. Though primitive, the instruments were dependable. The team verified all things remained ready. Takuma noted how the rough instruments resembled crude battlefield amputations further than delicate surgery. With no response, he instructed the team to monitor anesthesia and breathing closely. With a steady hand and silent breath, he signaled the first incision. Layer by layer, they worked through skin and muscle, cautiously navigating around vital tissue, using basic but precise instruments. As the flesh parted, the lumbar vertebra eventually arrived into view, obvious and exposed, ready for the next step. Instructed the team to maintain the current state while he worked through limited visibility from capillary bleeding. The man named for instruments to remove obstructive bone, acknowledging this as the most delicate stage of the operation. The team operated under immense pressure, their movements tense yet concentrated. Takuma nodded, calming his breath and reminding himself to stay steady. With firm resolve, he tightened his grip on the tool, prepared to defend her future with his own hands. Takuma reminded himself why he remained there, to rescue the sufferer in front of him, no matter the cost. With great care, he reached the affected site and announced victory as the herniated area came into view. The man avoided the spinal cord and started removing the surrounding tissues with steady precision, extracted the culprit, an inflamed mass pressing against essential nerves. Yet, it had created such intense suffering. Everyone watched in silent disbelief. As the hernia remained removed, Takuma guided the team into the last stage, closing the wound. Observing the skilled motions, one assistant felt awed by the certainty of Takuma's expertise and technique. With suturing done, he named on Askley for healing. The sufferer's form was cleanly sealed, and the team silently celebrated a job well done. A sky above marked the moment. The operation was completed. The procedure was a finished victory. Takuma sat silently beside the unconscious sufferer, monitoring her state. The beastman doctor verified the surgery was a technical victory, but stressed that her true state could only be judged once she awoke. With admiration, the beastman praised Takuma for rescuing a existence with his own hands. Exhausted, Takuma stared at his hand, drained of sorcery and power. The man smiled faintly, his eyes on the sleeping girl, silently hoping she would open hers. Without talking, the physician sat with a small animal, watching over the wounded party. Uncertainty lingered as he evaluated the girl's healing, unsure if the operation had succeeded. A flicker crossed her face as former recollections slowly stirred. Scenes of a silent countryside came to thoughts, where existence was modest yet steady. Regardless of its isolation, that settlement held warmth. She understood those moments had been genuinely fulfilling. All things changed following a new road connected the settlement to the city. Fresh settlers introduced rice farming, turning traditional fields into paddies. People thought further food and trade would bring lasting prosperity. Yet, amidst the tall grass, something small and unnoticed commenced to stir. Soon after sickness struck, a young woman lay in bed, her sister helplessly observing her suffer. Illness spread rapidly through the settlement, affecting entire families all at once. Fearing infection, outsiders responded with fire, choosing to destroy rather than risk contagion. One sister urged the other to flee, sacrificing herself to ensure their escape. Tears dropped as the settlement remained lost, its people gone in a single night. Merely she and her brother survived, wandering the woodland with grief and unanswered questions. An enigmatic woman presented the siblings a fresh path, promising survival. She reached out her hand, and the girl, desperate to rescue her brother, consented to. The party's hands met, and the scene shifted. Takuma's composed face greeted her. She awoke in a bed, slowly understanding the agony and recollections were fading. With Takuma's care, sensation came back. The nightmare ended, and healing had quietly begun. She remained steadily from the bed, her legs responding without agony or frailty. Takuma clarified the care's limits, yet she expressed genuine gratitude. As they sat together, she presented to share what she understood about the sickness. While recalling her dream, she avoided sympathy and pivoted the concentrate to healing. His questions triggered a memory. Sufferers had yellowed eyes and lingering fevers. Signs she now recognized. She labored to recall the sickness, but hints finally surfaced. Takuma steadily proposed malaria as the most probably cause. The man clarified its nature, expanded by mosquitoes, long known to plague humanity. In his realm, farmland expansion frequently triggered outbreaks due to stagnant water. Even though unsure, he believed plant-based compounds might hold the cure, offering a small but real hope for care. Grateful for Takuma's help, she commenced to question if aiding him meant betraying her kin. Yet she clarified that demons weren't united or bound by a single cause. To her, they remained merely people, distinct, diverse, and not inherently special. Demons, she unveiled, remained humans who had unlocked sorcery in the face of death. Demonstrating her power, she increased a blood-fed plant in her palm, leaving Takuma stunned by the connection. Takuma listened as she clarified how demons possess formidable magic and physical power beyond humans. The woman admitted that trusting him so easily might have been a mistake. With a sly smile, she warned that both humans and demons might turn against him. The man hesitated as she playfully presented her hand, unsure whether to accept it. Yet, in his reflections, he resolved if someone genuinely required help, he wouldn't turn away. Takuma grasped her hand firmly, resolving to assistance if he could make a difference. Without delay, he vowed to reach for anyone suffering, no matter who they were. By gripping hands, he thought power and courage could be shared between them. The woman smiled, calling him kind yet reckless, yet warned him to stay cautious, observing close by. The cat purred in approval, while their joined hands sealed a quiet confidence. The enigmatic cat circled them once before steadily traveling away, leaving both startled. Under the moonlight, they wondered aloud what the beast genuinely remained, unable to answer. Fatigue took hold, and Takuma eventually consented to rest, lying down near his sufferer. She watched him sleep, recalling his remarks, and silently reaffirmed her decision to trust him. With dawn approaching, she sealed her eyes, a silent determination blooming within her heart. Takuma coordinated materials and shared updates with Gerald as preparations bore on. With everyone assembled and ready, the party set off with goal. Their destination was a dwarven settlement, seeking clinical instruments for tomorrow healing. In this realm, even minor injuries could be fatal, and treatments remained far from reliable. By improving remedy, Takuma thought they could defend lives and move closer to the future he envisioned. While traveling, the party encountered monsters, prompting immediate struggle formation. Though everyone trailed orders well, she observed gaps in their coordination and concerned about stronger foes. Understanding that defense alone wouldn't be enough, she resolved stricter training might be required. Afterward, the party chose a silent valley for camp, hoping to rest safely. Yet, as she neared a tree, something within reacted unexpectedly, catching them all off guard. The party remained in awe prior to a giant tree-shaped shelter, amazed that they could live within it. The woman guaranteed comfort, yet reminded them that luxury wasn't the goal, rest remained preparation. One ally proposed that growth required testing limits, not retreating into comfort prior to resting. She proposed they experience hell first, her smile unsettling. Screams packed the night as training turned brutal, while Takuma silently watched under the full moon. As night dropped, the party rested in hammocks, exhausted from training. Takuma stayed awake, silently planning for the next day. She neared, noting how resolved he was to chase his ideals without rest. The party reflected on the party, each companion unique, yet growing in their own way. Takuma consented, believing everyone could improve with attempt. Even if slowly, the woman reminded him as their physician. He remained the one who would hold them all together. Clarified he was sketching essential needle designs for tomorrow use, unsure what the dwarves could provide. Confident, he promised he'd gather all required materials and carried on drafting with focus. She observed quietly, understanding that this was his way of fighting through preparation and care. Though she'd planned to sleep, she stayed by his side, drawn by silent admiration. Under the moonlight, she resolved to remain a little longer, silently observing him work. A sailing vessel cut through the sea, surrounded by sleek water horses pacing alongside. One passenger, cloaked in black, stepped to the edge, enjoying the breeze. Abruptly, a sailor cried out in shock, panic spreading through the crew. Kelpie had bitten a man's finger, its sharp teeth unexpected and perilous as chaos unfolded. The cloaked figure calmly moved ahead, prepared to assess the wound with unshaken focus. The cloaked girl softly reached for the man's wounded hand, channeling healing power into his wound. The man stared in disbelief as the agony faded, and his finger remained fully restored. Rumors stirred among the crew, but she swiftly attempted to dismiss focus and vanished. Alone at the railing, she silently vowed to grow powerful enough to stay by their side. Within a bustling dwarven forge, sparks fly as hammers strike steel. Amid the clangor, an apprentice abruptly cries out in agony. Gripping his face, the youth kneels prior to the elders, overwhelmed and ashamed of his mistake. Afterward, the party sets out across rocky terrain, discussing the curious traits of the forge god. The party speak of blindness, burns, and injuries created by years of relentless labor. Reflecting, the physician recalls similar myths from his own realm. The physician listens as they mention numerous dwarves in the upcoming settlement seem blind in one eye, hinting at years of physical strain. As they walk, he silently speculates whether a diagnosis could be feasible using medical expertise from his own world. Eventually, they arrive at a mining settlement developed completely by dwarves. Dense smoke and buildings mark the settlement's hard-working nature. Fermentation houses, forges, and distilleries line the streets, packed with heat and steam. The physician clarifies that the signs of blindness from forging could be addressed through care, even replacing clouded parts of the eye. The man's casual remark surprises the fox-eared girl, while a close-by dwarf overhears the conversation. Stunned, the dwarf urgently questions if he genuinely can examine eyes. All at once, the physician is dragged off to assist, overwhelmed by the sudden praise. The man's allies watch, half amused, as he's whisked away into another unexpected circumstance. Smoke rose across the forge settlement as a frustrated voice sounded from within one of the buildings. By the basin, a young worker labored to rinse his eye, unable to dislodge the irritating fragment. An elder dwarf scolded him, warning that improper washing could lead to swelling or worse. The physician arrived asking whether the metal shard was removed, yet the answer was obvious. Understanding the issue, he swiftly recognized it as a corneal foreign body. The physician suspects the cause of the youth's eye agony might be a sharp fragment embedded in his cornea. Word spread swiftly he is not just any traveler, yet one capable of diagnosing eye conditions, skeptical yet curious. The dwarves remember a previous charlatan and stay cautious. Regardless of initial hesitation, one dwarf questions him to at least hear their concerns. Reluctantly, the physician agrees, though he had only come to mission clinical tools. With fiery determination, the dwarf vows to craft anything in return if the youth's care succeeds. Astonished but sincere, the physician accepts the challenge, noting that curing such a case is uncommon. When questioned about his ability, he cautiously responds that it depends on the severity, but there is still hope. He then moves in front, asking to be entrusted with the boy's care, moved by his remarks. The elder turns in the direction of the suffering apprentice in silent contemplation, unsure who to confidence. The elder dwarf confesses his dread of blindness and what losing both eyes would mean. The man recalls darker times, when those who couldn't work remained abandoned to survive alone in the mountains. Though grim, it reveals how precious one's eyes and hands seem in their line of work. Comprehension his pain, the physician shares his own hardship with disability. Moved by empathy, the elder eventually asks for care, and the physician accepts with resolve. Those observing sense the weight of the existence-changing decision. To begin the examination, the physician requests light from the mage's workers and cautiously prepares the setup. The man clarifies that passing brightness through the translucent layers of the eye reveals injuries more clearly. A slit lamp microscope seems illustrated, hinting at how brightness refraction aids diagnosis. With the instruments in place, he starts inspecting the boy's wounded eye under the beam. The physician clarifies that the wound can be treated using a local anesthetic and a needle. He reassures the youth that following the injection and a short sleep, all things will be over by the time he wakes. Lying on the table, the youth inhales the anesthesia, slowly slipping into unconsciousness. Now fully prepared, starts the procedure to extract the fragment from the eye. Meanwhile, the onlookers react in horror at the thought of employing a needle on the eye, unable to imagine enduring it with steady hands. The physician uses a fine needle to delicately remove the fragment from the youth's eye. As the procedure ends, he hands over care to the assistant, confirming the care seems finished. He assures the father that the wound is clean and no abnormalities should stay. Formally, the youth wakes. The elder listens silently, attempting to hold back emotion. Relief washes over him as he softly holds his son. Grateful he remains spared from blindness. Physician gazes upward, his mind briefly drifting following the operation's victory. In the healing room, the dwarves express profound gratitude, calling it a debt that lasts a lifetime. Humbly, the physician states he merely did what he could, relieved that it all concluded well. Another sufferer nears, asking if even more critical eye conditions can be treated. With obvious visuals, the physician outlines how timely care can save vision if the right methods are in place. A conjunctival flap surgery seems one desperate solution employed in veterinary fields. If vision seems lost, corneal transplants first attempted in Itsenjo by Arshaba replace the damaged layer with another's. Takuma clarifies that, with suitable tools and remedy, up to Bafanjatisha of blindness cases could be prevented. The others react with disbelief and interest at the talk of transplanting eyes from others or corpses, calling him a bold adventurer worth investing in for the tomorrow of the dwarves. Offering to craft the required clinical instruments himself, grateful for the offer, Takuma expresses his thanks with a smile, relieved by the cooperation. The man also requests a written recommendation to a major religious institution that the party seems aiming for. In return, the dwarf questions if Takuma can examine further people throughout his stay, which he gladly accepts. Nevertheless, talk of the missing priestess sparks confusion apparently. Someone may have locked her in the storehouse. The elder dwarf strokes his beard, asking Takuma to check if the priestess seems suspicious. Intrigued, Takuma agrees to see what's going on, curious about her circumstance. The party walk to a little storehouse where the girl had been confined. Within, the priestess lounges comfortably, casually wishing for food and a blanket. Takuma seems baffled by her carefree attitude, while the dwarves awkwardly admit the place may have been too cozy. The man cautiously questions what the priestess remained doing locked up, sensing something off. The woman had requested a guillotine, raising further concerns about her goal. Apparently, it remained intended to sever limbs of the faithful. Takuma seems horrified. Even she admits her methods aren't viable as things stand. The woman casually claims some injuries could be healed if recut cleanly, though it might be fatal, leaving everyone stunned. Takuma and the others begin to suspect the priestess resembles a known person from the Fourth Order. The woman abruptly declares her genuine identity and claims the ability to regenerate lost limbs. Everyone freezes, overwhelmed by her unexpected revelation. Justina, the fourth-ranked holy saint, possessed miraculous powers capable of regenerating even lost limbs. Yet, her ability came with a dark state. Injuries had to be severed to be healed. Many couldn't survive the agony, leading to numerous deaths. Since of this cruel approach, she earned the terrifying nickname, the Execution Saint. Traumatized by past condemnations, Justina labored with recollections of her executions. When questioned if cutting off limbs was safe, she hesitated. Her silence talked volumes. The physician steadily clarified that amputation bore a high fatality rate, even under modern standards. Clinical procedures from earlier centuries were brutal, involving crude instruments and minimal anesthesia, frequently leading to death from shock or infection. He emphasized how, in the past, the speed of amputation resolved survival, making genuine instant regeneration a revolutionary gift. A dwarf, overwhelmed with guilt, apologized for mistreating the honored saint. Though stern, Justina clarified her methods weren't driven by cruelty yet necessity. With urgency, Justina clarified her circumstance while modifying the guillotine's restraints. Pressure from noble factions threatened to force her onto the battlefield as a false saint blamed for her father's death. Officials demanded she prove her sanctity through combat, revealing no regard for her dread. The woman argued. Her healing wasn't flawless. Any blood loss could be fatal if her power failed. Resolved, she begged to demonstrate her worth properly and pleaded for guillotine approval, formerly more. Justina pleaded her case, claiming that with suitable instruments, more lives could be rescued. The party left the workshop and eventually stepped into the streets, relieved and hungry. Yet rumors proposed someone other than the church remained responsible. As they traveled, the dwarf unveiled Takuma had cured a man's blindness, confirming his rising reputation. The party soon arrived at an archery training ground, a place packed with activity and anticipation. Curious about the archery range, Justina lit up with a concept, eager to do something saint-like. She dramatically introduced herself to the party, offering her assistance in genuine holy maiden fashion. Skepticism packed the air. Some recognized her as the execution saint, not the healer she claimed to be. A burly man moved in front, desperate for proof, asking if the rumors about her healing were true, revealing 5 healthy fingers fully regenerated, just as the miracle had vowed. Locals expressed awe at Justina's aura, calling her a legendary person rarely seen even in the capital. A gruff archer clarified his fingers no longer functioned due to years of stress and struggle injuries. Justina recognized his state at once: degenerative joint disease. The detailed signs matched textbook cases: joint damage created by heavy longbow use over time. Confidently, she announced this remained why she earned the title Saint of the Bow. Justina casually questioned if anyone could cleanly sever the dwarf's damaged hand. She clarified the lack of proper tools often became an issue throughout such procedures, hence her call for a guillotine. Faced with the opportunity to be healed, the dwarf reluctantly consented, prompting her to proceed without delay. The man tensed as she prepared, debating whether a clean cut now might be a blessing. Cheerfully, Justina reassured him victory rates remained still high for hands. The dwarf raised the axe high, steeling himself as Justina offered a cheerful signal to proceed. Prior to the blow landed, Takuma stepped in, prompting them to wait. He acknowledged her reasoning yet questioned the need for a guillotine, suggesting alternatives might exist. Given the opportunity, he requested to present a safer approach for the procedure. Justina consented with a smile, curiously asking what he had in thoughts. With the decision made, the party arrived back to the workshop to prepare for a safer solution. Presented a basic makeshift tourniquet, claiming it would ease anesthesia and control bleeding effectively. Tension built as the dwarf silently braced himself, eyes concentrated ahead. Concerned about the pain of self-amputation, the residents asked if his arm could still function. Takuma steadily assured them, predicting several complications and promising a controlled, safe procedure. Cautiously pointed out the risk there remained no guarantee the dwarf's right hand would fully heal. Astonished, the dwarf pivoted to him, asking for clarification. To manage that risk, Takuma proposed testing regeneration on the already damaged left hand and presented a backup strategy. The man described an artificial joint, explaining its structure and typical use for restoring finger function. Even though he avoided unnecessary surgery, Takuma thought regeneration would still be the best outcome if it worked. Impressed by Takuma's precision and respect, the dwarves noted how distinct he remained from typical battlefield medics. Hoping for victory, one dwarf joked about celebrating with a toast employing his restored hand. With renewed confidence, the dwarf bowed and formally questioned Takuma to treat his hand. Takuma outlined the procedure: sedation first, trailed by limb stabilization contrary to outdated freezing or intoxication methods. Though skeptical, Justina permitted the operation to proceed, reluctantly stepping back to observe. With everyone in position, the surgical team stood over the sufferer, prepared to begin the procedure. As the anesthetic took effect, Takuma verified everyone's roles, ensuring instruments and aid were in place. The man instructed the assistant to apply the cloth tourniquet and tighten it properly. Following instructions, the assistant twisted the wooden rod, securing the pressure to stop blood flow. With all things set, Takuma raised the scalpel and steadily started the incision. The incision started cautiously, starting with a little cut along the skin surface. As Takuma worked, an astonished observer doubted the gradual pace would hold under pressure. Abruptly, a sufferer stirred, his consciousness slipping unpredictably, raising concerns mid-operation. Takuma stayed concentrated, tying off major blood vessels and nerves prior to deepening the incision. The man clarified that preserving skin edges would allow for stitching in case regeneration failed. The next step involved cautiously slicing through muscle tissue to expose the bone beneath. With precision, the witness was placed and Takuma started cutting through the bone to finish the amputation. Normally, bone edges would be filed down. Yet now all things rested on sorcery to seal the wound. An assistant wondered how the sufferer stayed so calm regardless of the elapsed time. Another clarified modern anesthesia worked even against agony, keeping the sufferer fully unconscious. Takuma requested the last step, Justina's sorcery. She cast the spell, channeling healing brightness into the wound. A brilliant radiance enveloped the stump as regeneration started, signaling the miracle in motion to everyone's amazement. The dwarf rested up. Both hands remained intact and fully responsive. Prior to emotions could erupt, Justina remained swiftly pulled aside to avoid chaos. Curious, she demanded answers about Takuma's drugs, especially the blue one that rivaled her miracles. Justina panicked at the thought of being replaced. If others remained promoted to the Four Saints, she would lose her rank desperate. She clung to Takuma, begging to maintain her title. Takuma watched as the group entered for the Four Saints selection. The procedure emerged basic but bore weight. Cheers erupted as a joyful girl raised her arms. Others celebrated the outcome with bright expressions. Not everyone shared the joy. One girl hesitated, clearly concerned. Losing her title might mean punishment. Doubts clouded her reflections. To those in power, roles changed by convenience. The woman's compelled smile faltered. The girl panicked, startling the group. Takuma and the others pivoted, puzzled by her sudden response. A witch-like person started analyzing her healing powers, noting their unusual origin and power. Takuma's look tightened as the girl linked his lost limbs healing to a near-death experience. Realization dawned. The others stared without talking as the truth behind her powers became undeniable. The woman unveiled it bluntly. Saints and demons were the identical, both born from death's edge. The party stared in stunned silence as the girl's remarks sank in. Her calm look masked deeper truths. Irritation flared as she was questioned about her knowledge. The others demanded answers she wasn't prepared to give. A usual mark became the center of focus. One glance verified it wasn't ordinary. She clarified it steadily. The mark emerged when mystical limits broke during extreme events. In her case, it emerged after her settlement was destroyed throughout a deadly outbreak. The atmosphere pivoted somber as shared hardships arrived to brightness. One by one, they unveiled their past attacks, loss, and near-death experiences had scarred each of them. Through sorcery and recognition, they found new roles and power. Slowly, they gained a place in the realm. Comfort arrived back, but so did restrictions. Oversight increased tighter as power increased. In the end, she remained warned, stay a saint or be treated as a threat. Suspicion packed the room. The label of demon weighed heavily, sparking silent discomfort. Some understood the threat too late, even with good intentions. The reality now tied them all together. In an instant of panic, she announced they were all accomplices. Mistakes could cost them all things. Confidence in Holy Knights faded. The identical protectors had formerly fought against her kind yet. Despite the doubts, one silently admitted he still hoped they'd defend his settlement. With assurance, she proposed a strategy. Rather than sending people to war, she had a better idea. Beaming, she invited them to join her in helping others under her lead. The party stared back, too stunned to respond at formally. The woman insisted the offer remained safe, comparing it to a normal guild mission just with extra paperwork. Helping her would boost both their reputations and hers. Even further, the woman insisted that even Holy Knights could act if others took the first step. Desperation packed her plea as she begged for assistance, promising to do anything in return. While hesitant, Takuma admitted the strategy didn't sound completely bad. Doubt still lingered. Her behavior was unusual but sincere. Slowly, the others started to soften. Takuma remembered his own journey, once distrusted but eventually agreed to for his expertise. He reflected on the weight of new expertise. Genuine power came when many remained behind a shared cause, to rescue lives. Even unsure ideas deserved consideration. Takuma listened cautiously to the reasoning, though hesitant. He admitted shortcuts weren't constantly bad if they helped further people. He resolved to lend his power to those who required it, guided by a simple truth. At last, the party consented they would assist others under her lead. Overjoyed by the team's aid, she raised her arms, proud to be seen like a hero. The word hero struck a deeper chord. Takuma and the others silently embraced the responsibility. With optimism in her eyes, she thought their attempts could bring smiles to many. No time remained wasted. A beast subjugation mission had already arrived. Meanwhile, preparations started for their expedition. Instruments, gear, and teamwork underway. Takuma neared the craftsman with a mission, hoping to revisit an earlier conversation. He clarified the joint issue was created by stress, suggesting a tool redesign could assist reduce strain. Diagrams of modern bows and crossbows remained shown, each utilizing distinct mechanical principles for ease of use. Though unrecognized with pulleys, the craftsman grew intrigued by the concept. Takuma questioned for the design to be built to defend a comrade's hand. Plans advanced to build the equipment, with support roles swiftly assigned. A few days would be needed. Everyone consented without delay. Spirits rose as the blacksmith left to finish his current tasks. Another craftsman presented food and shelter as thanks, insisting on hosting a feast for their attempts. Gratitude outweighed hesitation. The party trailed without protest, drawn in by warm hospitality. While traveling through the settlement, a quiet mission for help sparked a new conversation. He suggested a new idea, something he desired to create. Her response was mixed, caught off guard. Regardless of teasing, she increased curious. His enthusiasm appeared hard to ignore. A bold suggestion trailed to start a fabric revolution together. Skepticism flashed across her face. The statement sounded ridiculous. Still, she had the abilities. Fabric from her settlement remained the best completed in a day. Everyone split up for errands. Light-hearted remarks remained exchanged, and they vowed not to be gone too long. Meanwhile, the others gathered for a warm evening feast, laughter echoing through the hall. Drinks flowed easily, spirits remained high, and smiles were everywhere. Some overindulged, stacking mugs as if it remained a competition, far from the noise. Two others browsed a silent shop, lanterns lighting their composed walk home. As the sky dimmed, they came back home. A little afterward, then vowed a huge pot caught his eye. With polite urgency, he questioned if it could be borrowed. Permission remained granted instantly. He set it down in the yard while she watched silently, questioning what arrived next. When questioned, she verified she could produce plants using magic resources from her homeland. The plan was unveiled. Employing flax, they would create gauze for clinical use. The man reminded her this attempt wasn't just for his own sake. The woman wasn't alone in remembering her homeland. The sincerity in his remarks stirred something. Recollections felt lighter with someone willing to carry them. With a soft nod, she consented to help. Her sorcery would grow the required plant. Power gathered in her hands, and stalks burst forth under the open sky. Water roared within the pot. Preparations remained eventually underway. Boiling, dying, and weaving it all brought back distant recollections. The woman questioned what made this a revolution. The man clarified the refining process. Alkali removed oils, softening the fibers for better absorption. Producing high-quality cloth took time, sometimes half 12 months, due to constant drying and repetition. With sorcery replacing electricity, he proposed employing sodium hydroxide to accelerate the response. Puzzled yet curious, she repeated the term softly, letting it settle. Clarified how natural waxes on fibers repel water, but that could be removed with treatment. She observed quietly. Following 2 hours, the fibers remained soft, highly absorbent, results that usually took months. The man revealed how treated gauze could be essential for stopping bleeding, even rescuing lives. Her eyes widened. The conversation shifted saints, demons, and what people failed to see beneath labels. Softly affirmed this cloth would help many. She said nothing, but comprehended totally. While the girl listened without talking, Takuma spoke with calm resolve. The man demonstrated by softly applying a cloth to a wound, illustrating how healing started with the simplest, most human of actions. With a reassuring grip, he presented hope, believing that Forn's tomorrow could still be reshaped starting from this small instant. The conviction in his words lingered, drawing a subtle shift in her gaze as realization commenced to dawn. A faint laugh escaped her as she responded lightly. Takuma and the girl traveled together, observing the silent settlement. Mountains loomed in the distance and smoke rose from chimneys, signaling existence and activity in the settlement underneath. Residents gathered in a cellar, excited about a new medicinal brew stated to ease agony and suffering. The party lifted barrels in celebration, tasting the drink, astonished by its unusual yet effective flavor. A warning label on the floor caught Takuma's concentrate. Barrels lined the dim cellar, darkness flickering from the torch as Takuma stepped cautiously within. At the training grounds, a fox-eared girl steadily aimed her fresh bow, attracting curious eyes from close-by warriors. With a sharp release, the arrow rocketed forward and struck the wooden target dead center, splintering it on impact. Gasps sounded as smoke and flames burst from the log, leaving even veterans momentarily speechless. The woman examined the bow, amazed by its power regardless of its brightness build. Close by, the party credited the physician, whose design had made the unachievable real. Recollections of clinical training surfaced as he remembered lessons on emergency care and bleeding control. Though hesitant, he acknowledged that expertise gained must be tested through experience. Together with his allies, he prepared for a beast subjugation mission that would put their skills to use. Rather than wait idly, he sought herbs to treat local illnesses, offering his aid where required. Looking at the settlement, he silently resolved to become someone capable just like the physician who inspired him. A silent instant passed between the two as they acknowledged the balance of kindness and strictness in their mentor. The party gathered to plan their next move, prepared to prove their growth through action. One comment caught him off guard, mistaking sincere praise for teasing. yet it merely lightened the mood. Abruptly, a deafening noise ripped through the air, drawing all concentrate skyward. Smoke increased from the distant mountain. An explosion had just rocked the mines. Smoke still increased from the mountain as residents gathered near the mine entrance, confusion spreading among them. Arriving on scene, the party verified the location was packed with displaced townsfolk and signs of panic. They swiftly neared the recognizable doctor, seeking answers to the sudden incident. An elder clarified the explosion stemmed from a worker's careless mistake while drinking in the tunnels. As the physician assessed the circumstance, he questioned if the harsh-smelling liquor was even safe to consume. Takuma clarified the substance wasn't lethal, yet still harmful if inhaled or consumed improperly. The man remembered historical cases involving methanol, turpentine, and ether, drawing connections with past clinical practices. Amid the chaos, word expanded that several workers remained trapped and unable to return on their own. With tension rising, Takuma remained questioned if any solution stayed, his silence betraying uncertainty. Girl moved ahead, her expression firm as if ready to act without delay. Without waiting for approval, the silver-haired woman announced she and Isekai'd would lead the rescue. She framed the assignment as the opportunity to grow stronger, regardless of Takuma's visible hesitation. The woman's remark struck a chord, challenging him not to stand idle, blaming frailty. Though reluctant, he understood she wasn't abandoning them yet, pushing them to rise. With unwavering eyes, she told him she thought in them. That's why she dared to push them forward, assured that assistance would be close by if things went wrong. The others consented to join the rescue. Takuma groaned in irritation, understanding their strategy clashed with his mentor's cautious philosophy. Regardless of mixed feelings, the party slowly aligned in silent acceptance of what had to be done. Though inexperienced, Takuma voiced his resolve. They couldn't just turn their backs. With resolve rising, he rallied the team to prove they were ready, no matter how reckless it appeared. Takuma entrusted the physician with the base while his team headed for the mine, reassured by the preparations. As they departed, the residents remained informed of the rescue attempt and how they could assist. Moved by the announcement, others started volunteering, forming an aid team beyond. Within the dim mine, the team advanced cautiously through the wooden tunnels packed with smoke. Guided by scent, the fox-eared scout located the drunken and wounded workers deeper within. As they advanced, Takuma observed unstable beams overhead, the faint creaking warning of threat. He swiftly led the group in the direction of what emerged to be a more secure location, urgency in his voice. The others verified a stronger scent of alcohol, suggesting the collapsed workers remained close by. Moments afterward, they discovered the dwarves sprawled across rubble, unconscious yet alive. Closer inspection unveiled one trapped beneath debris, his leg badly crushed under stone and timber. Takuma assessed the wounded leg, noting crushed bone, embedded debris, and the risk of amputation. The man remembered the dangers of crush syndrome and the urgent need to prevent systemic failure. Acting swiftly, he applied a tourniquet, confident he had stabilized the bleeding for now. With one sufferer secured, the party started escorting the others out of the collapsed mine. As they retraced their steps, the faint sound of creaking beams warned of further threat in front. Takuma instructed half the party to escort the wounded out while he led the rest deeper in. Abruptly, a loud rumble sounded through the tunnel as a fresh collapse blocked the path. Rocks and dust packed the corridor. The exit remained sealed. And worse, the area stayed unstable. Panic increased as one worker dreaded they were totally trapped. Yet just then, Takuma's team emerged from the rubble, alive and unshaken, prepared to face the next challenge. Takuma's party reached the last team of workers and verified their injuries remained manageable. Just as they readied himself to leave, the aid beams gave way with a thunderous crash. An explosion of debris engulfed the passage, rocks obliterated their merely obvious exit. Now totally sealed in, Takuma stared at the rubble, understanding the path remained gone. Prior to anyone could react, ominous creaks sounded overhead. Another collapse was still imminent. With sorcery, the woman reinforced the crumbling supports, gripping back further collapse for now. The team understood the mine remained critically unstable. Closure was a matter of time. The woman traced the direction of escape, preparing her spell to break through the obstruction. Steadily, she proposed blowing open a path by destroying part of the mountain from within. Stunned, the mage questioned if she really meant to blast the hill from within. It wasn't that big, she responded. The mage hesitated, wary that unleashing such force might bring the entire mine down. Her ally steadily insisted it was feasible with magic, the same power used in battle. Reassured, she remained reminded that her mystical power was more than enough to succeed. With a glance at Takuma and a profound breath, she readied herself, workers in hand. Power rushed as she braced to cast the spell. Determination etched across her face. The mage offered it her all, yet the spell's power still dropped short of breaking through. Irritation built as she protested, but her ally urged her to focus and channel all things. With steady remarks, the fox-eared woman reminded her just pour it all into one last strike. The woman assured her that no matter the outcome, someone would be there to aid her tightening her grip. The mage steadied her heart this time. She wouldn't hold anything back. With her sorcery fully charged, the mage unleashed a surge of power. As power gathered, she announced her resolve. Her friends traveled beside her, and she'd forged their path forward. With a roar she named out to the earth, commanding it to heed her tone and tremble. An enormous blast erupted, tearing through stone and rubble in a blinding display of force. At last, daylight poured through. The path remained open, and their escape now feasible. Exhausted but upright, the mage gripped her staff as the others watched nearby quietly. Moved by her strength, brightness streamed in through the broke ceiling, proof of her power, and the way forward she carved. With widened eyes, she gazed at the clear sky, understanding how far she had come. Beyond, residents observed the tremor and turned toward the mountain in concern. The doctor steadily clarified it wasn't an eruption, but the mage's immense magic breaking them free. After confirming the circumstance, the man resolved to move swiftly and take action. An enigmatic party emerged near the mountains, sensing the distant explosion and noticing the smoke. Among them, a resolved leader took charge, vowing to search for a person named Astina. In a clearing near the mountains, Takuma coordinated care attempts. Dozens sat in agony. Takuma steadily assessed them, noting that most suffered only minor injuries, a little relief amid the chaos. He silently wished the clinical tools he requested would arrive sooner. He could save more lives with suitable equipment. A hooded person emerged, drawing Takuma's cautious gaze. Relief crossed his face as he understood. It was a group of holy knights he knew eventually arriving to aid him. Takuma observed something odd in the cloaked party's behavior. This wasn't just a casual visit, it felt intentional. Rumors stirred about disobedience to the church, and the consequences remained grim. A suggestion arrived from the girl combining his ether with her sorcery might cancel out their crimes. Confidently, she proposed that showcasing their healing could win acceptance. Takuma appeared unsure yet listened closely. This instant felt pivotal. If their care gained recognition, it could reach countless people. A stern priest arrived, demanding answers from Justina. Edgar urged her to return to the capital at once, but Justina resisted, sensing the circumstance was more critical than they understood. Remaining her ground, she pointed to the suffering residents, insisting that helping them arrived first. Takuma watched in surprise, understanding the newcomers weren't as hostile as he first thought. Prior to he could reflect further, an urgent call reached him. A critically wounded sufferer had just been brought in. Takuma knelt beside the wounded man, his face tense as he examined the swollen leg. Though they had trailed his earlier instructions, the wound revealed signs of critical contamination and swelling. One priest insisted on immediate amputation, yet Takuma hesitated. A mental reference of the syndrome's effects surfaced in his thoughts. Rapid action remained crucial to prevent necrosis. Using makeshift tools, he started preparing for emergency treatment. Aware the outcome was uncertain but not unachievable. Hearing a recognizable voice, Takuma pivoted to see Dwarvel approaching with goal. Beaming with pride, the dwarf unveiled a wooden case. The long-awaited clinical instruments had arrived, just in time. Grateful for the aid, Takuma agreed to the kit, understanding it would make all the difference. Prior to he could begin, Edgar stepped in and presented his assistance with the procedure. Regardless of the offer, Takuma steadily clarified that 2 people were enough, especially when dealing with a strong dwarf. Edgar nodded in comprehension, stepping aside with his men as Takuma prepared for the next steps. Rather than argue, Takuma proposed they witness the procedure themselves. It would prove no force was required to handle the sufferer. Takuma handed off tasks and assigned roles while rushing in the direction of the next emergency. Close by, others talked about the dwarf sufferer, confirming he had survived, and surgery was about to begin. Observing the paladin's retreat, the girl muttered her reflections aloud. Magi announced she would hide with another girl while Edgar stayed behind to assist Takuma once the area was secure. Within the preparation room, the sufferer lay on the operating table, unconscious, his leg visibly swollen and infected. Regardless of the limited workers, Takuma hesitated to call for more assistance, questioning whether they should proceed as planned. Glancing at the surgical tools, he observed all things was ready. A team companion began applying anesthesia. With assurance, Takuma neared the tray. Takuma addressed the onlookers steadily, informing them the procedure remained about to begin. Reaching for a scalpel, he selected the precise instrument he required, his hand steady regardless of the pressure. With a profound breath, Takuma offered the signal. It remained time to start the operation. The first incision remained made with care, slicing through the swollen tissue to relieve pressure. Focusing fully, he started sawing through the infected limb, committed to rescuing the sufferer's life. The assistants remained in stunned silence. None of them expected such ability was this truly happening prior to their eyes. Meanwhile, the sufferer stayed unconscious, The operation had been performed with exceptional calmness and speed. One assistant murmured in awe, questioning who Takuma really remained and what influence he had on Justina. Speculation deepened as they commenced to understand why Justina might have left the church. Beyond, Takuma verified the surgery had just completed. Surprisingly, little blood had been lost. Edgar acknowledged the outcome remained far beyond conventional techniques. A letter Justina left behind remained handed to him, prompting a silent instant of reflection. The woman's cheerful tone contrasted the seriousness, as she verified this was part of their care reform. Though holy knights could only save dozens, per Dalton Y, this non-mystical approach could transform all things. Such victory, Edgar understood, might have frightened those in power, possibly explaining Justina's secret departure. Pleased with herself, Justina affirmed the reality, though. Sharing further might upset the nobles further. A return was proposed. She didn't object, though. Her look suggested at internal resistance, all at once. She and her double cheerfully handed over written requests, derailing the grave mood, hoping to boost his reputation. The fresh proposal involved slaying monsters while traveling to the capital. Takuma consented, witnessing it as another chance to help and possibly gain wider recognition for their work. Traveling to the capital would normally take a month. Recognition struck when his name remained mentioned, though confusion trailed he hadn't expected to be known. The party's mentor formally wrote to the commander, hinting that one of his students might aim for sainthood. Talk shifted to the concept of heroes. Not everyone thought in them, yet former stories lingered. Rather than a figure of power, Gerald appeared to envision a classic hero, one traveling silently among the people. Edgar expressed optimism that their deeds would reach the capital. Back within, cheerful chatter packed the room as plans for side errands and shopping took over the conversation. Prior to long, riders departed on lizard-like mounts, shrinking into the distance as the party waved them off. A last farewell sounded as they lifted into the sky, promising to meet again someday. Left behind, Takuma consented to return to the inn. Both men visibly tired from the day's events. Following a long day, the party came back to the inn where the others were expected to be resting. Opening the door unveiled a shocking sight. A towering beast loomed silently inside the room. Apparently, the beast had emerged out of nowhere. From the unusual shadow, a book emerged, its pages packed with sketches of plants and herbs. Takuma examined it closely. Something about the book appeared oddly recognizable, stirring a distant recollection. While flipping through the book, Takuma recognized the tree. It resembled one employed to extract quinine, a malaria remedy. Excited by the possibility of a formidable care, the others crowded in to read. Closer examination verified its natural habitat somewhere near the region they remained, already set to explore. Coincidentally, the beastfolk settlement, requesting assistance, was located close by, aligning perfectly with their route. Though skeptical, everyone commenced to realize this opportunity might be worth pursuing after all. Questions arose about malaria's reputation. One of the beastfolk verified that similar illnesses troubled people long ago. Searching for a cure felt further purposeful than chasing titles. Helping Phone arrived with personal stakes too. Playful teasing broke out. The younger beastkin clung to Phone while others watched in amused silence. Annoyance bubbled beneath her smile, yet she labored to push the girl away. Takuma chuckled. Powerful bonds, following all, remained nothing to discourage. The party gathered around the map, setting their next destination, Onkosaruka settlement, for remedy and monsters. The party advanced silently through the woodland, surrounded by thick trees and undergrowth. Trailing behind, Takuma took note of the heavy gear on his ally's back, recalling its origin. Their path stretched on, yet signs proposed they were closing in on Onkoselka settlement. Flipping through a guidebook, Takuma recognized the objective, a cave, profound within a close-by swamp. A brief discussion clarified the target beast remained a bat-type beast, not a man-eater. While examining the quest details, the party speculated that the target beast might not be as threatening as expected. Soon following, they reached a huge gate nestled within the woodland, marking the entrance to their destination. Takuma's look stiffened as confusion set in upon witnessing something unexpected. Prior to him remained an enormous tree with intricate wooden structures built along its trunk. He understood the village, Onkoselka, was composed completely of homes, hanging in the trees. Enormous trees stretched into the sky, each one fitted with houses and hanging bridges between trunks. Onkoselka remained a border settlement inhabited by beastfolk. Takuma listened as the witch clarified the area's threat. Flying monsters forced the residents to live in the trees. He quietly watched the bustling life around him, filled with beastmen going about their day. Understanding their power, Takuma noted the settlement's survival relied heavily on hunting and leatherwork facilities. Takuma listened as the girl described the settlement's reputation for powerful hunters and skilled mercenaries. Regardless of that, questions arose. Why would such a capable settlement request beyond help? With no obvious answer, they resolved to consult the settlement chief for more details. Prior to they could proceed, Takuma remained distracted by a sudden tone calling out. A girl rushed in the direction of them, pleading for someone to rescue her father in distress. The young beast girl rushed to her father, who collapsed while gripping his farming instrument. Takuma neared and observed the man closely, noticing signs of distress in his breathing. Kneeling beside him, he steadily instructed the man to stay still as he started examining him. There were no external injuries, but Takuma suspected a sickness related to lung inflammation. Regardless of wheezing and fatigue, the man resisted rest, prompting Takuma's concern to deepen. An elder warned of the white serpent's curse, claiming its threat could cut his existence short. Regardless of the warning, the sick beastman insisted on fighting, fearing monsters would soon assault the settlement. Takuma remained startled by the mention of a curse, sensing deeper complications behind the sickness. The party's warrior ally clarified that they had come to learn more about the hostile horsefly beast. The party gathered in a round hall, preparing to hear the full story from the elders. Settlement's mission letter lay on the floor, written in ancient script and formally addressed. Nevertheless, the curse mentioned earlier wasn't included in the official mission, raising doubts among the party. To clarify, the elder clarified the actual threat: horseflies, infesting the swamps near the White Serpent's cave. Own Beastman elaborated, warning that while the creatures remained perilous, they could be handled with caution. With numerous warriors away at war, the settlement remained left vulnerable. Takuma asked the elder about the so-called curse, prompting a heavy silence prior to a grave account. The elder talked of a swamp infested with horseflies, spreading sickness from the White Serpent's cave. Numerous warriors had died over the years, their hearts slowly deteriorated by the unrecognized affliction. Even mild cases resulted in blindness or muscle failure. Understanding magic and weapons were useless. The party acknowledged that only a clinical expert could intervene. The atmosphere grew heavy as the father and daughter silently processed the threat ahead. Desperate, the young girl unveiled that a uncommon glowing moss profound in the cave might cure the curse. The team understood their merely option was to enter the cave and discover the rumored kainayaki herb. Concern arose about whether merely approaching the swamp might risk infection from the curse. Following weighing the risks, the party hesitated, unsure if they remained equipped for such a threat. One of the girls proposed a direct solution, retrieving both the herb and the moss herself. Protests at once trailed, warning her that even she wasn't immune to the threat. She insisted that kainayaki was the last optimism to rescue her family, and questioned to gather both items. Doubt lingered. Others questioned whether the secret remedy was even real or effective. Still, her hatred for the sickness outweighed concern for her own existence. Everyone dropped silent as tension packed the room, eyes shifting in the direction of Takuma for a response. The man steadily questioned whether there was any proof that the glowing moss actually cured the curse. Faces pivoted, unsure, especially the girl, who appeared shaken by the question. Pressed further, the elder admitted there remained no clinical results, merely vague stories from warriors like Wolf. Takuma listened silently, as the room acknowledged the moss's reputation arrived from passed-down folklore. Takuma requested permission to investigate the curse's genuine nature rather than rely on unsure lore. Shock expanded through the room as his proposal defied traditional beliefs. He steadily questioned Wolf to share signs and the history of the White Serpent's influence. The residents consented, placing their trust in him and preparing to assist nevertheless they could. Soon following, Takuma started a physical examination, collecting information firsthand for a clearer diagnosis. Takuma presented his findings to the party, outlining a strategy to avoid spreading the curse. Back at the swamp, hordes of horseflies commenced to emerge, swarming aggressively through the air. A formidable blast of ice sorcery remained unleashed by the witch, freezing enemies mid-flight. The others joined in melee and ranged attacks maintained the monsters at bay. Amid the chaos, commands remained shouted to avoid the stingers and finish them off cleanly. Smoke curled across the swamp floor, signaling the aftermath of the team's mystical barrage. All at once, an enormous horsefly emerged from the haze, dwarfing the others in size and menace. Recognizing it as the leader, one party companion urgently named for everyone to stay sharp. A devastating collision rocked the trees. The beast's power made it once clear. Unfazed, the girl moved in front confidently, dismissing doubts about their combat experience. The woman confessed that unless she defeated the threat herself, it would haunt her even in sleep. Afterward, as the smoke settled, they reflected on all things they had learned from Takuma. In a composed setting, Takuma informed Wolf that his sickness was known as filariasis. The man clarified how parasitic worms infect the lymph system, frequently transmitted through insect bites. The actual cause of Wolf's signs arrived from threadworms nesting near his heart, identifying sluggish blood flow and excess fluid as the cause of respiratory distress. Rather than a supernatural curse, he clarified the signs remained triggered by invisible parasites entering through fly bites. The elder's look hardened as he understood how dangerously close this affliction mimicked the effects of a genuine curse. Changes in the ecosystem had permitted parasite carriers to multiply. Though the elder thought his fate was sealed, Takuma's composed response conveyed his intent to struggle for a cure. Takuma remembered a tool that might assist and silently searched the supply room for it. He soon neared a door and knocked politely, catching the focus of the beastman close by. A sharp-eyed woman burst into the room with assurance, mistaking the circumstance for something more urgent. Suspicion packed her gaze as she circled Takuma, questioning his aura and intentions. Leaning in close, she caught a recognizable scent and instantly understood his connection to someone she understood. Takuma froze as the woman's cryptic smile deepened, her identity cloaked in unsettling mystery. The man freezes as a cloaked woman and a muscular man with an eye patch confront him at the doorway. With a sharp gaze, the woman evaluates Takuma's response, her tone laced with insight and caution. The woman tilts her head, raising an unexpected question that catches him totally off guard. Amusement flickers between the pair, while Takuma remains tense, unsure about their genuine intentions. Just then, a canine-faced person enters. The woman steadily assures him, hinting at a feasible connection. The woman chuckles softly, amused by the concept of being weighed an ally. Her look sharpens as she assesses the circumstance, hinting that even deeper injuries can be healed. Within the room, introductions continue awkwardly as a beast-like man reacts to the party's arrival. From his pouch, the man with the eye patch reveals an former item, triggering the beastman's recognition. A smirk forms as the eye-patched warrior stands tall, silently confirming his legendary identity. Takuma listens as the older man recalls a past struggle, revealing the supposed death of his former comrades. The woman reacts with mild disappointment, while the man casually offers to share a secret in the meantime. With a soft tone, she clarifies that someone they know merely struggles with trust and distance. Takuma politely inquires about their relationship with this missing person, clearly puzzled by their dynamic. Rather than answer directly, the woman proposes an introduction. The woman introduces herself as Alfrera, claiming to be a mentor person to someone named Forn. Curious, she gestures to Takuma, prompting him to share his background in return. The man responds earnestly, identifying himself as a physician serving the brave party on their expedition to sainthood. Alfrera reacts with surprise, questioning his ambitions regardless of Forn's aura. Abruptly, she bursts into laughter, amused by the unexpected turn of events. Takuma seems urged to examine the beastman, who abruptly clutches his torso in visible distress. Signs of critical sickness emerge. Alfrera identifies it as a late-stage parasite affecting the heart. Reflecting on similar past cases, Takuma realizes the gravity of the state and prepares for intervention. A detailed clinical diagram confirms his suspicion. The parasite seems obstructing critical blood flow. Grimly, Takuma concludes immediate action is required without care. The sufferer will certainly die. A young girl runs in terrified as her father lies unconscious. Alfrera warns her to say goodbye while there's still time. Gripping to her father's torso, the girl breaks down, begging him not to die. The circumstance worsens. The beastman's breath shortens, and despair sets in among the party. Alfrera solemnly declares there's no longer any optimism, prepared to give up. Abruptly, Takuma moves ahead, insisting there is still a way to save him. Alfrera stands stunned, wide-eyed at Takuma's sudden declaration. The woman questions him sharply, emphasizing the parasite seems fatal and cannot be ignored. With firm logic, she insists that even sorcery can't safely remove it without risking death. Takuma silently reflects despite her doubts. She understands the state better than anyone he's met in this world. Steadily, Takuma assures her opening the chest isn't required. He has another approach. With assurance in his voice, he clarifies the procedure can be done using medicine, tools, and precise technique. Her eyes widen in shock. There's no time to explain. The man swiftly turns to the sufferer, asking for a leap of faith. Urgency fills the room as he pleads to be relied on. The sufferer's labored breathing carries on. A faint nod signals agreement. Relieved, he thanks them all and rushes to prepare it formally. A understanding smile spreads across her face. Something in his determination seems to echo with someone from her past. The man questions for assistance, assigning each person a role in the operation setup. No hesitation. The party agree, curious about what might unfold under his lead. Positions seem taken swiftly. Everyone moves with urgency and goal. Child moves ahead, eyes pleading. He nods quietly, accepting the weight of that trust. A quiet voice promises to do all things feasible. Clouds drift steadily overhead, contrasting the urgency below. Within the wooden room, preparations finish. Two figures stand ready in surgical gear. One assistant marvels at the anesthetic's effect. then wonders how heart parasites will be removed. A brief anatomy discussion starts, concentrated on reversing blood flow direction for safe access. Diagram clarifies the approach. The strategy seems to block key veins and pull the parasite directly. Surgical instruments are prepared. Precise expertise, built on unshakable logic, underpins the approach. Gloved hands begin the procedure. Each move seems careful, silent, concentrated on the target. Muscle is separated with ability. The unsealed vein is pointed out, an obvious path forming. Accessing the heart becomes the next step. With composed precision, the instrument seems inserted deeper. A smooth pull starts. The parasite starts to emerge. Surprise flickers in her eyes. Witnessing a live parasite extraction leaves her speechless. A heart diagram seems shown, explaining the instrument's path through the vein into the right chamber. Realization sets in. This approach removes the parasite without opening the torso. The first stage is announced finish. Stabilizing the sufferer becomes the immediate priority. Some deeper parasites stay unreachable. Instruments can't go farther without risking damage. Rescuing the sufferer's life was the limit of what could be done for now. A finished cure would require advanced tools not yet invented. Footsteps echo as someone arrives with urgency, questioning the sudden start of care. Help is requested to close the wound swiftly. A firm response comes without delay. Instructions seem shouted. All things must be completed without delay. Afterward, sunlight filters in. The sufferer sits up, smiling, alive and surrounded by relief. A heartfelt reunion unfolds. Relief fills the room as the child clings to her recovering father. Eyes meet across the room. A sharp glance and a loaded question stir tension between two women. Sarcastic remarks seem exchanged. Past issues and vague references hint at deeper conflict. Voices rise. Interest turns toward the physician's origin and the unusual path that brought him here. An account starts. His look, it seems, is tied to a higher being's experiment. Originally, Takuma remained, meant to be delivered to someone else, not end up here by opportunity. Those around him had been part of an experiment. Sickness expanded in their town, and only Takuma could heal it. In return, a vow remained made, one existence for another. That's why she stayed by their side. A smirk forms. Fate had its own way of forging unlikely connections. What formerly appeared improbable now feels silently reassuring. Takuma reflects on the unusual statement. Blessings drop. The name stirs unease. The woman considers its meaning. If it's genuinely a blessing, it might even favor demons, a possibility too actual to ignore. A cloaked woman abruptly steps in, halting Takuma and asking to speak with him privately. With a confident stance, she reveals her intention to express goodwill as a representative of the demon race. Introducing herself as Alfernera, she hints at a deeper conspiracy behind the recent incident in their community. Takuma's eyes widen as pieces of memory-sick residents and tense allies surface in his reflections. Alfernera, unshaken, states that unresolved matters still linger and need to be dealt with. Prior to any further tension could rise, a cheerful girl jumped in and hugged the demon woman. Observing the lively party, Alfernera smiled faintly, commenting on the happiness that came from powerful bonds. Details emerged about someone related to Forel making the identical odd mission, raising further questions. Regardless of the uncertainty, Takuma expressed confidence that they could handle problems together if required. His ally softly added that laboring and choosing together is what truly matters. Takuma silently reflects on his tendency to overthink, choosing to entrust matters to the physician and Svelte instead. Understanding the sufferer's room wasn't ideal for discussion. The party agrees to relocate to a more suitable place. The party gather beyond, where privacy allows for an open conversation to continue. Alfernera clarifies that her actions serve a goal, not personal revenge, even if they cause disruption. Unfazed, Takuma responds firmly, stating they have no intention of interfering with her choices. Alfernera unsheathes a knife, remarking that mere apologies aren't enough to show sincerity. The woman presses her hand to the ground beside the weapon, explaining her position as a demon and a desired leader with a high bounty. A composed smile appears as she offers to explain her goal. To everyone's surprise, she proposes they could merely claim her head for the reward. Confusion spreads, and one ally questions whether Takuma will genuinely allow such a thing. An elder questions Alfernera's intentions, unsure if her actions genuinely serve the demon race. Takuma, setting aside the talk of bounties, questions her to explain the real cause behind her aura. Without delay, she delivers a shocking truth: the world is heading in the direction of destruction. Stunned silence follows, as Takuma and the physician hardship to grasp her remarks. Alfernera clarifies that the end may come in decades or centuries, yet her goal seems to prevent it. Alfernera reveals that the unusual incident in their community had been part of a larger experiment. The woman references two triggering factors: tied to the themes of oppressed demons and the fall of prosperity. Takuma listens cautiously, but feels the account may point to a totally different problem. Proposes a formidable demon could seek revenge by destroying the realm, and Takuma hesitates, confirming his suspicion. She admits the concept is nearly correct, but merely as a diversion for something larger. Alfriera reveals that the ones who may genuinely bring about the realm's destruction are not current threats yet, the next generation of demons born from tragedy. She declares that in the end, merely the hero or the demon lord will shape that fate. One ally asks if such a formidable person already exists. The woman clarifies demons aren't born from natural disasters. Following tragedy, revenge constantly follows, and that cycle seems what they now face. A woman recalls the calm days her settlement once had, blaming a neighboring community for the tragedy. Softening for an instant, she smiles at Takuma, placing optimism in his ability to assistance. The physician responds with enthusiasm, promising to maintain searching for care even if current options fail. Returning to her point, Alfriera clarifies that numerous demons, shaped by trauma and rejection. According to what she has witnessed, the larger the sorrow. Alfriera warns that the realm's destruction seems inevitable if tragedy carries on. The woman raises a finger, introducing another threat, the so-named harbinger of ruin. This being, a cause of immense sorrow, can bring ruin to prosperous cities all it formerly. Pointing to a map, she clarifies their community was employed as a test to understand its nature and impact. Takuma sighs, understanding they were dragged into a larger scheme, while Alfriera confirms her assignment to defend the demon race. Revenge-driven demons, she claims, must be killed without delay. They seem destined to bring calamity. Without pretending to be a savior, she plainly outlines her reasons and goals. A knife is presented again, along with a question: how will they choose to judge all things they've listened to? Silence hangs as recollections resurface every step of their expedition, packed with acts of kindness. People they helped, including foreign, had discovered reasons to smile since of their choices. Takuma reminds the physician of the incomplete list he formerly shared when they first met, proof that their work isn't done yet. With a silent smile, the physician agrees. Treatments, transplants, even cures for malaria. There's still so much left to accomplish. Their expedition, Takuma says, has constantly been about rescuing lives, regardless of who they are. The knife seems arrived back. No decision of violence needs to be made. Alfriera chuckles, understanding her offer wasn't required following all. The woman admits they merely wish to live in peace, to avoid destruction, not to provoke conflict unnecessarily. Some in the party express silent relief that things didn't escalate when the knife emerged. A sudden realization strikes the statement shard that averts ruin echoes in the physician's thoughts. When questioned about it, he recalls hearing those exact remarks from someone encountered within the Harbinger's domain. Until now, she didn't believe a person could have survived within that place. All at once, Alfriera grabs the physician in excitement, begging him to explain what he experienced. Following listening to the full account, she reacts with surprise, questioning if deeper meaning lay behind what she'd formerly dismissed. The mood shifts, fresh information changes all things. Laughter bursts from her, as she calls it fascinating, gripping to the physician again in rising enthusiasm. Goal, fate, and even Takuma's arrival in this realm, she insists it's all connected. According to Alfriera, the Harbinger chose him. Continuing down this path might avoid ruin, as if marked with approval. No need to understand all things. Just save what must be rescued, she says, and the tomorrow will open beyond that. To seal the instant, she reaches out, proposing they stay on good terms from now on. With a nervous smile, he agrees. Confusion lingers in the air behind him. Forming friendships constantly seems to come with complications. A question seems raised about ruins in demon territory. Alfriera responds with a understanding smile, claiming to have lived long and wandered far across the continent. The woman offers to teach them all things, even ancient stories. Cheers erupt as everyone gathers around to listen. Some lean in with concentrate. Others, less so, dozing off or blankly blinking as she rambles on. Too thorough, possibly, suspicion flickers in Takuma's eyes, unsure whether her attempt seems genuine or a setup. A sharp-eyed observer watches from a distance, noting how well the party divides roles and maintains perspective. The man speaks of ideals, demons smiling, traveling alongside others. That kind of unity to him is the realm's best-case scenario. Praise is presented, somewhat awkwardly obtained. Still, intent behind the remarks feels genuine. In a less idealistic tone, he questions whether stopping the realm's end is genuinely feasible. Confidence in Alfriera has already taken root around the circle. While pausing in the woods, Takuma listened as the older man reflected on their expedition. The man talked with conviction about a calm path to save the demon folk, though help stayed scarce. Eventually, they pivoted to resume their march, their backs bearing the weight of hope and goal, rather than stay silent. Takuma moved ahead, uncertain of his role but prepared to contribute. With silent resolve, he faced the woman and proposed a concept he thought worth attempting. A feline-featured girl neared with interest, asking if Takuma had a clever idea in thoughts. Instead of hesitation, Takuma acknowledged her presence and recognized the power her kind was said to possess. He asked to test her power, hoping it could serve a larger goal. She cautiously consented. Takuma envisioned a possibility, creating remedy beyond his realm's standards, employing the surrounding air. Silence fell as the girl processed his remarks, puzzled by his focus on something named remedy. A group descends from the hillside as a woman channels her power into a heavy mallet, striking with concentrated attempt. Despite the mystical energy pouring into the tool, her advancement remains slow, drawing focus from those nearby. An ally observes silently, taken aback by the building pressure. Abruptly, glowing liquid surges out, spilling into a vessel with a brilliant radiance. This act fulfills a plan from the day prior to using formidable sorcery to create a rare, high-cost potion. Takuma steadily clarified his role as a physician, offering help, not dominance. He proposed using Damonkine's strengths in remedy to create dependent on healthcare, aiming to reduce prejudice through collaboration. When challenged, Takuma cited the saint as a successful example of human-demon cooperation. The man's remarks reminded the saint of their first meeting, shifting her look. She smiled, recalling his aid, and consented to the path forward. The woman asked the unusual remedy in Takuma's possession, her tone laced with doubt. Takuma introduced the substance as xenon, a gas from his realm naturally discovered in trace amounts in the air. The man clarified that, as an anesthetic, xenon worked faster than ether and bore fewer risks, like inflammation or combustion. An illustration highlighted xenon's security, stability, and its various scientific and clinical applications. Party wondered if such a flawless substance had any weaknesses at all. Takuma clarified that while xenon remained effective, the process of collecting it arrived at a steep cost due to its rarity. The man elaborated that xenon had to be cooled underneath even the coldest natural temperatures. Agreeing to try, the party resolved to delay the procedure due to the high sorcery and time required. A chilled glass remained prepared, radiating intense cold from its surface. Overwhelmed by the fact that a single human could achieve such extreme freezing alone, Takuma clarified that xenon made up merely a tiny fraction of liquefied air, requiring enormous amounts to extract just a usable dose. A breakdown illustrated how power-intensive the collection remained, with costs far surpassing ordinary anesthetics employed in surgery. The woman collapsed in exhaustion, understanding the strain such cooling demanded, even beyond what greatest sorcery could achieve. Acknowledging the difficulty, Takuma presented protection for her role. As an irreplaceable contributor, she quietly agreed to, eyes softening with reluctant comprehension. Takuma reflected on how close she had come to death and the harsh cold she survived. Looking skyward, she remembered someone from her past, someone who might have presented her another path. Though past attempts weren't perfect, she acknowledged they weren't finished failures either. The man extended his hand, humbly requesting her aid as he searched for better answers. With hesitant eyes, she weighed his offer to advance together. For the sake of their kind, agreement arrived with a warning not to overestimate her worth. Others existed with far larger abilities. A loud tone interrupted, announcing the completion of the white serpent's removal. The man presented the enormous serpent as a souvenir, inviting them to cook it nevertheless they liked. Pride revealed in his smile, impressed by the team's growth and training results. Regardless of rough coordination, their efforts to support one another unveiled strong potential for future victory. Praise remained given for her training and growth, though she appeared unsure how to accept it. With the fieldwork done, the group readied himself to head in the direction of the main goal, the source of the cinchona tree. Quiet emotions stirred as they traveled, some hopeful, others unsure of what they'd find in front. The party's expedition led to a vast cave entrance wrapped in tree roots and silence. Within, glowing brightness reflected on jagged crystals as they stepped deeper into the enigmatic cavern. The cave stretched wider than expected, with their genuine destination lying even deeper in front. According to a borrowed book, a map unveiled the tunnel rushed beneath several landscapes. Some suspected the uncommon cinchona tree might be growing at the farthest point of the cave system. Unexpectedly, an enormous bat emerged, shocking some, while others calmly recognized it as a natural predator. With the white serpent gone, balance slowly arrived back to the ecosystem. Without delay, the group resolved to press onward through the glowing tunnel. Steps sounded as they advanced deeper, until brightness in front signaled something unexpected. A bright exit unsealed up prior to them, revealing the beyond world bathed in sunlight. Relief swept over their faces as they emerged from the cave, eyes adjusting to the open air. Abruptly, one of them pointed excitedly. Rows of unrecognized trees came into view. A close comparison verified that the leaves matched the illustration perfectly. Confidence filled his voice as he recognized the tree. Without delay, believing they had found the real cinchona, joy burst forth as one of them leapt into a hug, overwhelmed with relief and happiness. Silently, a smile appeared, emotion stirring at the thought of what this discovery could mean. The tree's leaves, once enigmatic, now presented real hope of feasible cure for the boy left behind. Takuma clarified that even the guidebook leading them here had come from the enigmatic drop master. She weighed the wider impact curing sickness with this tree could be praised worldwide, possibly even encouraged by higher powers. When questioned for the flower, he handed it over, and she activated an unusual ability. The woman steadily stated she had just recorded its essence into recollection. Moments afterward, a fresh cinchona tree sprouted from nothing, proof she could reproduce it endlessly. She encouraged him to make the most of the unlimited supply and craft a genuinely effective remedy. He vowed to give it his best. A strategy appeared, she suggested, at a proposal that could solve multiple problems at once. The woman proposed heading to a sacred hall along the route to the capital. Piquing interest, the place remained where a fresh leader would be chosen, through confinement and deliberation. Apparently, elders debated endlessly within. Just like the conclave system back on Earth, a detailed account of the conclave process unveiled strict voting, seclusion, and high stakes for selecting a fresh leader. Current elections remained already underway, confirming the timing remained ideal for their strategy. She proposed using this opportunity to test the remedy and win favor with the church throughout the transition. Following some thought, the concept appeared sound an opportunity too strategic to ignore. With roles set, she would retrieve the sufferer while the others headed for the sacred hall. Everyone consented on the strategy. Some would return to the settlement while others headed for the sacred hall. One warrior presented to train her further, noting how uncommon it was for her to dive so profound into things. She smiled faintly, acknowledging the truth in his remarks prior to observing the others leave. Eyes trailed them silently. Emotions held back behind a calm look. For the first time in centuries, she thought they were traveling in the direction of a brighter future. A huge crowd assembled near the fallen horsefly. Its enormous form sprawled across the field. Gasps trailed as concentrate shifted to the white serpent, another formidable beast now defeated. Stepping forward with pride, the warriors announced their triumph over both monsters. Drawing cheers from the elders, Takuma presented insight, noting the restored balance from the serpent's fall and the return of natural predators. With a confident nod, he verified the circumstance was eventually under control. Takuma assured the residents that the white serpent's curse would no longer threaten their lives. In gratitude, the elder proposed employing the serpent's sheet to host a grand feast celebrating their liberation. The concept of a banquet sparked surprise, but the suggestion swiftly pivoted into excitement. Without delay, the residents prepared the carcass while others gathered in anticipation. Fires remained lit, bread remained baked, and ingredients chopped as the feast preparation started in full swing. Steam increased from dozens of dishes made from the serpent, displayed across the banquet tables in abundance. While the feast looked grand, Takuma remembered studies warning of parasites commonly discovered in reptiles. Regardless of his concern, the residents cheerfully shared food, drinks, and laughter beneath the open sky. By the end of the celebration, every dish had been emptied, leaving behind merely full bellies and smiles. As morning arrived, the party bid farewell to the residents. Takuma informed Worf that the parasite infection hadn't been fully cured. Regardless of the concern, he reassured him that a permanent solution would be feasible once the right instruments were developed. Worf reflected on how Takuma had gone beyond healing, eliminating both sickness and the monsters that expanded it. Gripping Takuma's hand, he offered heartfelt thanks with no remarks left yet. "Thank you." Observing a young villager express dreams of becoming a warrior, Takuma smiled softly at the hopeful tomorrow. The elder encouraged the story of the hero's victory to be passed on. With the sky obvious above, the party readied himself to leave for the next destination, the sacred hall of Nardus. Residents lined up to bid farewell, promising a warm welcome should they ever return. As they departed, one companion reflected on the residents' kindness. Close by, a conversation turned in the direction of practical concerns, what to do with the remaining serpent meat prior to its spoiled. Takuma remained taken aback when he learned the enormous basket wasn't for meat storage yet for transportation. Curious, he observed carefully as one of the group neared the woven structure without a word. A sudden surge of movement erupted from within as a formidable force started to stir. From the basket emerged a majestic beast, huge, winged, and awe-inspiring, revealing its true goal. Both Takuma and his ally remained speechless, overwhelmed by the unexpected sight prior to them. A hybrid beast appeared from a snake and dragon had been created as temporary transport for the party. Takuma observed it was designed for solo riders and questioned who would accompany whom. The party's eye-patched ally volunteered to act as a guide and protector. Discussions erupted about training and combat roles, with some voicing concern over the harsh demands already faced. Meanwhile, others reflected on the difficulty of managing their party's eccentricities, each companion requiring unique concentrate. Takuma listened silently as his allies lightly joked about youth and responsibility in their party. Meanwhile, burn remained referred to as a contingency strategy in case the assignment met trouble. The risks of their assignment remained high, especially with political figures involved. Though astonished, Takuma acknowledged the value in having multiple strategies prepared, especially with formidable allies close by. When questioned for long-term aid, he offered a gentle smile and affirmed his willingness to stay by their side. The party gathered for final remarks with a silent nod exchanged prior to parting ways. One companion announced their intention to retrieve allies and regroup in the capital. With a cheerful cry, she soared away on the winged beast, prompting admiration from those observing underneath. Nevertheless, reflection swiftly shifted to logistics, as walking to Nardis would be difficult for Takuma. An alternate strategy remained proposed, employing flying dragons to cut the travel time down to just 2 days. Takuma inquired about the flying beast, comparing it to planes or trains from his own realm. The eye-patch warrior clarified the strategy to use the Nardis Chapel as a base, while funding research through beast hunting. Despite the limited time, Takuma concerned about producing remedies swiftly. The man discussed how even basic ingredients like soaked tree bark could offer medicinal effects when properly processed still. The team acknowledged the challenge in front securing transport, earning funds. Takuma clarified the medicinal origins of tonic water, tracing it back to quinine from the cinchona tree. The conversation veered into alcohol, prompting a frantic warning to avoid discussing it near dwarves. Even so, Burnt revealed interest in gin and tonic, requesting a glass for himself next time. With the mood lightened, the party resumed their expedition. The party ventured through a jagged, alien landscape, Takuma reading from his notes while the others stayed alert, where banter and drinking swiftly broke out among the travelers. Takuma was stunned by the power of the liquor, warning of potential agony if consumed too carelessly. He clarified the risk of kidney stones, a state where mineral crystals sheet painfully in the urinary tract. A brief historical lesson trailed, tracing kidney stone treatments back to ancient times and ethical dilemmas. Their eye-patched ally presented to teach his sorcery, though, warned it wasn't suited for just anyone. The eye-patched man claimed his sorcery was frail and basic, yet still practical in combat. With a snap of his fingers, he demonstrated it, abruptly trapping a cup in mid-air prior to a startled audience. The man clarified it remained a barrier spell, effective at close range and useful for restraining enemies. Though it looked unimpressive, the spell could serve as both shield and distraction. Unveiled, the magic was born from improvisation created the moment he required a distinct outcome. As the night settled, the young warrior paused, his gaze drawn to his allies gathered around the fire. The man admitted that emotional talk wasn't his style, yet the desire to defend others still lingered in his heart. With sudden resolve, he took a long drink, surprising those around him. Though still inexperienced, he announced his intent to defend what mattered greatest. Bowing his head, he questioned to learn all he could from the seasoned warrior beside him. The young warrior reflected on his teacher's lessons about revealing sincerity and respect to others. With a little smile, he mentioned that their former knight captain remained someone they all deeply admired. The man's comment was met with laughter, and yet another toast as the party's bond increased stronger. Nightfall blanketed the rocky camp as their lively gathering bore on under the stars. Elsewhere, a serene convent stirred as nuns tended silently to the numerous resting within its stone halls. Within the convent, sufferers lay in worsening states, some groaning, others vomiting or begging for water. A young official arrived, stunned at the severity, comparing the suffering to tropical military campaigns. The man rushed to report the circumstance, bursting into a room to alert a church authority. Tensions increased as he demanded the immediate cancellation of an upcoming selection council to address the crisis. Unusual and painful signs carried on spreading among the wounded, alarming the caretakers faced with worsening conditions. The official warned that failure to act could lead to the country's collapse. As tension gripped the Nardis Chapel, uncertainty and pressure mounted beneath darkening skies.